though?
Nah, you're all right. You're all
My
right.
phone, I'll be honest, my phone's all cracked up, so I don't even really see that well. But
Oh, well.
I can hear you good though.
You can hear me good.
Yeah.
I'm here with a familiar face to Fightful.com. It's Matt Riddle. Now, Matt, we got to get down to nut cutting time right here. How does it feel a year later?
I thought you weren't going to do that. I thought you weren't going to do that nut cutting time. I thought we were going to take an easy interview this time, and you're coming at me sideways already?
There were things I said I wasn't going to ask you about, but I didn't say anything about asking you about what it's like to have the second best hair on this broadcast right now.
Look, I have the second best, or you have the second best?
You have the second best, without a doubt. This is like another Elias Theodoru come to Jesus meeting for you, where you saw his hair and now you see mine. And that was the first thing you mentioned when we saw each other face to face here.
Your hair is nice. It's got a nice curl at the end.
Yeah,
I can tell you take care of it. You comb it. You know what to do with it. But that other guy, his hair is still. There's a reason why he has sponsors.
Yeah, per plus, man.
Dude, his hair is phenomenal. Like, because my hair is pretty nice, and that's not bad hair yourself. But that dude, guy's good.
Well, fortunately, even if I might not have better hair than Elias, I'm way prettier than him, and I'm a way better fighter than him and you. Yeah. But let's just talk some shit. Easy. I was on a conference call a while back with one Kenny Omega.
Whoa.
And he put you over. He put you over big time, Matt. What'd you think about that? I know you heard about it.
I mean, I'm a fan of his work. I've seen him do a couple things. And I think he's one of the greatest things in the business of wrestling today. So hearing that from him is, that's awesome. That's a stallion move. It's you don't expect somebody at that level to even know who you are. And the fact that he knew who I was and spoke highly of me was, it was awesome.
So have you ever had any interaction with him? I mean, I'm sure have you all been on any shows together at all?
I shared a locker room with him at PWG, I think last year at Bola, and it was him tagging with the Bullet Club, the Young Bucks, and they did like a 6-man tag, I think, against like Phoenix, Pentagon, and somebody else. I forget.
Phoenix is pretty awesome too.
Yeah, but he killed it last night. But that's the only time I really didn't talk to him. I don't even know if we shook hands.
Really?
He's a busy guy. I think we at least nodded. We were like,
yeah. So you're not the type of guy who walks in there and shakes everybody's hand.
Well, I'm not a real kiss ass, so I don't want to Kenny Omega's here, I'm going to go up and shake his fucking hand. It's more like if we walk by each other, I'll shake a hand. I just feel like a lot of times, and wrestling, of times in wrestling, it's almost like, dude, I get it. Goodbye. Hello. Like, we shook hands 6 times already. You don't have to shake hands every time you go to the gas station. Like, it's one of those things, But at the same time, you are showing mutual respect by shaking hands. But I think a bow or a nod is just as good as a handshake.
A bow, huh? Who have you bowed to?
Dude, I'll tell you this. When I first started wrestling, I tried the bow. And I
really?
Would try to bow. Well, because everybody's grabbing hands and shaking hands, and I'm not used to it, and nobody wants to, fist bump, whatever. I was like,
it can get messy. It can get messy. You don't know where everybody's hands have been.
Exactly. You don't know where my hands have been.
That's very
maybe
true.
I like to keep a messy hand, and with people always trying to touch it, I feel bad. So I tried the bow, but it doesn't work. You always have to touch.
So
it's a rule.
When's the last time you hit somebody with a bow?
Oh, I hit bows every weekend. I hit at least 3 bows in Vancouver's Saturday.
But to who?
What do you mean?
Who's worthy of that?
Okay, say you're 10 feet away. You could make the walk to each other, but instead you're like, later, bro.
Okay. Oh, that.
Oh, you mean traditional Japanese?
Yeah.
Bow. Oh, no. This is modified American bow. A bro bow.
Sure.
I think do you still see me?
No, hell no, I don't see you. There we go. Now I see you. So,
but yeah, it's a bro bow. It's still, that's the respect. There's the bet.
I mean, to be honest, when you said that, I was like, all right, pretty well established MMA fighter, Matt Riddle.
You just thought I was straight traditional.
Yeah, I was like, what kind of impression?
You know what? Sometimes I do like a half semi-traditional bout after matches to the crowd. You know, like
yeah, of course.
You know, you do that. Blow some kisses. I love you guys too. Thanks for coming. If you didn't, I wouldn't have a job. I'm out.
Yes. You know, of course. That's the thing. They make that kind of impression. I'm like, damn, who tore it up in the ring with Riddle to make him just straight up dip down and bow his head?
Hey, I'm not saying I haven't bowed. Like, I'll bow to, you know, the Suzukis and the Ishis and, you
Triple
know.
H.
And maybe. I don't know. I don't know if I'll bow down to the game.
So, did you ever hear the story about Young Bucks getting heat for not shaking Booker T's hand backstage in TNA?
No, but you see, I like Booker. I mean, I've never met him, but he seems nice. I've been to his school in Texas, and they all seemed pleasant. But Booker comes from a different time, and it's more traditional. And you were like, and it's still like that most places, you know. But at the same time, I guarantee the Bucks are kind of like me. You don't want to seem like a kiss ass. And Booker T is a legend. He's a five-time.
Yeah.
Right? There's 3 of those. You know, like that's pretty impressive. So it's like they probably didn't want to be like, oh, I don't want to seem like I'm just kissing ass. So like I won't go up to him. If he comes by, I'll shake his hand or something. And you know, he probably just never went by him. And now there's tension.
Well, the thing is, Booker T always strikes me as that kind of guy too. Like in his type of attitude, it's either like he commands everybody's respect, or he's the type of guy who's like, no, I'll shake your hand later. But it might be kind of hard to tell with Booker. Because I mean, he can be confrontational. I mean, he kind of trolled the internet with the Corey Graves thing. Did you see where he pretended he wanted to fight Corey?
Yeah, I saw that. Is that a thing at WWE? I can just like pick fights with coworkers and we can handle it outside with Twitter.
Oh, apparently I interviewed Corey Graves a while back.
They both have their job, and that,
yeah.
You know, so it's like, oh, so I guess we can just fight each other in the parking lot.
I mean, Corey Graves was talking to me on the record, which never happens with WWE guys, about wanting to fight CM Punk the night of his fight. That was pretty wild.
I'll be honest, that might actually be a pretty good fight.
It might be. That was legitimately
they're both extremely worn down. They're both a little worn down from the biz. You know, I think that's a perfect those are the fights we should be booking. Pro wrestler versus pro wrestler in MMA.
Oh, that I thought Bellator should have booked Alberto Del Rio versus Jack Swagger as soon as they signed Swagger. I don't know. It's kind of wild. I'm sure you saw CM Punk's fight, yeah?
I saw highlights.
Now maybe it's just me, but I hear a guy has been training for 3.5 years at one of the premier camps, Rufus Sport. How can that be possible? Even if you're the worst ever, how can you spend 3.5 years there and have those types of fundamentals?
Well, honestly, because when you get thrown right into the lion's den, that's kind of what happened.
It's Mike Jackson.
It's still, dude. I don't mean the fighter. I mean the camp.
Okay.
Like just surviving. How many times do you think CM Punk actually got a punch off in training?
That's true. He ain't punching Sergio Pettis.
And everybody, and when you go to a killer gym, everybody just wants to kill you. I remember when I started off fighting, I trained at smaller gyms, and I got good. I actually trained in my apartment. Got really badass, and then I started winning all these tournaments.
Yeah,
you know. But I feel like a lot of people are like, I want to be the best at MMA. I'm going to go to Greg Jackson's, and it's like, dude, the worst guy in there is like a high level. They're all high level dudes. Even if you're training with the amateurs, those amateurs moved there so they could eventually train with the pros.
Oh, for a lot of people, walking off the street versus 2 weeks in is a lot.
And then you got to realize this. Now, many people probably try to take his chin and body at the gym.
It's true. That's true.
You know how many MMA fighters probably showed up and like, oh, you want to spar? I'll help you out. And then just beat on them just to say they did. And I'm not saying I would because that's not who I am, but I've been in both games and I know how this works, you know?
How many MMA offers have you gotten since you started pro wrestling?
I've only gotten a couple, and they're always foreign. They're always like in China or Russia, you know. And I don't know. Maybe I feel like American MMA doesn't have the money it used to, or it really never had. It was just a boom. But it seems like the only companies that can actually even pay like a good amount of money, other than Bellator and the UFC, are companies outside America.
And a couple of those just shut down, like, or not shut down, but there's delaying events all over the place,
Of course.
like ACB.
Dude, well, it's too expensive. It's ridiculous. It's saturated, and I feel bad for MMA fighters right now. Hence,
so,
all of them are hopping over to pro wrestling. Kane's over here, Ronda's over here. They're all coming over, and then yeah.
What do you think the motivation for Kane was?
I don't know. I think I paved the way. I think I'm a real pioneer for these guys.
Well, I mean, hey, we've got a crossover MMA pro wrestling boxing website that you were a part of. So, I mean,
I was.
I just want to say it's a good time. It's a good time to be in that business. So when you see a Brock Lesnar popping up in the UFC, what does that say to you about the UFC's business model? That they're taking a pro wrestler, not even just a pro wrestler that doesn't have weekly exposure. He's not on the show every week, and they're still like, this is the guy we need.
I think the UFC is grabbing for straws. I don't think all the other companies are shutting down for no reason. I think there is a reason. MMA is losing a lot of fans, and it's hurting them. And they have too many shows. You know the problem. Like, can you even keep up with all the fights? They had a fight Sunday yesterday during the day, right?
Yeah, it was terrible. Except for the main event. Anthony Smith looked really good.
The one who knocked out Shogun?
Oh, yeah.
Dude.
He looked great.
I mean, he looked great. Then again, Shogun's been in how many wars? In how many countries around the world? Like, dude, good fight for sure for that guy. But it's like, you didn't fight the Shogun.
Yeah, of course.
It's like, so,
and still, the sad state of affairs that division is in, Shogun is probably a fight or two away from a title shot. That's how rough that division is.
Yeah.
I think that kind of makes your point. So, as we wrap up, this is a big time in the life of Matt Riddle. As you look back on your first few years on the independent circuit, what stands out to you about the experience you've had?
The biggest things that stick out to me are just the opportunities I've been given. I've been really lucky. I think my background helped me out, but I think I've talked to enough people and I've been in the business long enough where I know, especially with my past, because people were really hesitant to deal with me, that I've worked really hard and I just got awesome opportunities. And like, if there's a couple things I remember that really like make me happy so far, like guys like Shibata giving me opportunities, guys like that, like coming to the indies and, brushing shoulders with me, especially stuff like that. Like those are big moments, or even like the bigger shows, or hey, Matt Riddle's Bloodsport. That's been really cool. And I think we're going to do multiple other ones in the future. So hopefully we keep that going.
It would be a neat trick.
Yeah.
Matt, I want to thank you so much. It was good seeing your face and your somewhat mediocre hair.
I don't know, man.
It's kind of mullety right now with the hat hair.
I always rock hat hair, bro.
You seen Brian Pillman Jr. rocking the full mullet?
Dude, I hang out with Brian Pillman Jr. We're the Hollywood bros.
He is when people ask me how he is, I say suspiciously nice, that guy. He is just super nice.
Yeah.
What a gentleman.
I really like him. He's a good guy. He's pretty hilarious.
He is.
Keeps it real.
Yeah.
He's a real bro.
He's doing things the right way. He could have just hopped in and got some turd level indie bookings based on who his dad was. No, he's like, oh, let me go to OVW. Then let me go up and train with Sammy Callahan. Oh, by the way, I'm going to go not even like Eastern Canada. I'm going to go all the way to Western Canada and train under Lance Storm. He's doing things the right way.
He's doing good things. He's also been training MMA as well.
Has he?
He's been doing jiu-jitsu and kickboxing. Like, the guy's really – I really think in a couple of years, I think it's going to be something serious. I think at first people are like, oh, that's kind of cool. But when the kid can work and actually do something crazy, it's like people are really going to get behind it.
Well, I know WWE like him. Yet another thing you two have in common. Anyway, Matt, it was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Any parting words?
Hey, thanks for having me. It was so nice to talk to you.
Yeah. I tried to talk to you ahead of Bloodsport, and you just evaporated into thin air.
My schedule before Bloodsport, my schedule WrestleMania weekend, I still haven't recovered from that shit.
You didn't do anything that weekend. You did wrestle another former Fightful contributor, Deonna Purrazzo, who got signed by WWE.
And I was victorious.
You were. It was a fluke, but you were victorious.
Well, I guess Sean Pearson was on. He beat me, but that's bullshit because that was a Canadian decision. In Vegas, I win. In Japan, I win. I had the heart in that fight.
You beat Jason Kincaid too. He writes for us.
Oh yeah, I did at AAW in Chicago.
You're 2-1. That's pretty good.
I'd say 2.5 because
let's say that's a UFC title shot right there. 2-1 these days.
I'm shocked they haven't called me and been like, Matt, we're bringing you back. I'm shocked.
Do you think they will? Because I think they will.
They probably will, and I'll be like, this is the saddest day of both our lives.
They hit you with that 500K plus pay-per-view points. What are you gonna do?
Do they still make that kind of money? Do they still push numbers?
Well, I mean, that's probably. I doubt it, but I mean, you're getting the 500K plus pay-per-view points.
I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Then again, I had to let somebody commit or try to commit extreme violence on my body. So
that's a good point.
Yeah. Or I could win in 10 seconds and be a real star. But then they'd want me to fight again, and it'd be a whole nightmare. And then I'd have to travel and fight on Sundays at 2:00 in the afternoon for fans that really don't like me. So it's just...
The USA Network would love you then. Matthew, thank you so much.
Hey, follow me on social media.
It's Super King of Bros now, yeah?
Super King of Bros at Twitter, Riddle Bro on Instagram, Matthew Riddle at Facebook. That's it.
I'm hanging up on you, Matt.
Yeah. So with having WGN having the pre-show for All In on there, were there any hurdles with that, with the Tribune company and the Sinclair potential merger with Sinclair being the parent company of Ring of Honor?
That's a great question. The best answer is none of this could have happened had it been a company.
Yeah.
Had it been a conglomerate presence, WWE, a Ring of Honor, New Japan. Instead, this happened because it was 3 guys. And that's why none of this whole situation happening, surrounding, throughout all the madness, we were just quiet. And people, they wanted All In. They wanted to have 0 Hour on, and we were outside of the politics. So it was very nice. It was something that was heavily discussed, but when it came to this, hey, we want wrestling. Hey, we have the best wrestling thing to give you. Done.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So are you going to continue to push for All Us and All Incoming and all of that kind of stuff to be produced following this event, or is that kind of just stuff leading up to the All In show?
I'd like to keep it going. There's a lot of, the sentiment behind All In isn't a single show, as we've seen with this convention existing here with StarCast and the whole town kind of being wrapped up in it. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to keep it going. I mean, I'm wrestling for the NWA World title on Saturday, but I'm also at the end of the month wrestling for the New Japan US Heavyweight Championship. So I'd like All Us and All Incoming. I mean, whether we change titles or not, there's a really great production company behind that. David Lagana has done an exceptional job. He likes capturing what's happening in a wrestler's life in a real way, and I like being the focus for that.
Speaking of NWA, you're obviously up for the 10 pounds of gold this weekend. Has NWA, have they ever contacted you for an angle before Billy Corgan and Dave Lagana came in? Was that something that you were ever approached on?
Yeah, it's always been floated my way because it's like the easiest thing to do, I guess, is like, oh, he's Dusty Rhodes' son. But as most people find out, if you met Dusty, he was the big star. If you meet my brother, he's the friendliest of them all. And then if you meet me, God, that guy's kind of a jerk. And I don't know why I am. I get it all from my mother, I think. But I think I push so much Dusty-related things away. Not because I don't love them, not because they're not valuable to me, because they're not me.
Right.
In this case, this came along as something that felt like me. hey, I want to wrestle for the NWA title, and Billy and I talked about it, and then the next thing you know, all right, well, let's get it done. And then I happen to be self-funding, promoting a show of my own. What a perfect spot. Because for a minute, they didn't have a match, I didn't have a match, and they've pumped blood back into the 10 pounds of gold. I mean, they literally was under the earth, just barely with the faintest signal of life left, and they've pumped blood back into it, and they've made you turn your head. That's this whole show. Pentagon, who is Pentagon? Well, if you don't know, you're gonna find out. Marco Stunt, how did he get in the Battle Royal? Well, you'll find out. It's about turning heads.
Excellent. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys, thank you so much for talking with us today.
No problem.
Especially busy weekend for you guys.
Oh, yeah.
So I was wondering, is there any corporate effort to control the content on Being the Elite? Does Ring of Honor or New Japan try to
They try.
They try.
And they know.
They tried and they failed.
At this point, yeah. At this point, they can't control us with what we want to do.
One thing New Japan's strict about is we can't use the in-ring stuff because it's TV Asahi owns it. So
we don't even
we
do
stay
that
away from
anymore.
that.
We get heat from New Japan a lot for things that are so stupid and silly, but the Japanese culture is so old-fashioned, traditional that we don't even realize we're offending someone. So we have to look at it and like, oh man, I'm sorry, we didn't realize.
As far as Ring of Honor goes,
they've been great.
They're totally great. They don't care. They let us do whatever we want. They let us shoot the in-ring stuff. Like we close shows with the phone in the ring.
They've never held back, and
they're great about that.
They've helped a big time with it.
For the most part, we literally just shoot and do whatever we want.
Yeah,
that's probably why the show's done so well.
Yeah.
So as it relates to stories that are canon, so it doesn't really matter. You guys can kind of steer those stories.
Yep.
Especially with Ring of Honor.
So either we steer the stories or we create the stories, and then they go along with the stories now at this point. So it's fun because now we get to be creative and we get to come up with our own storylines.
Especially with New Japan, because that was something we didn't have control over for a long time until we hit a home run on like a big angle, and then they're like, oh wow, these guys might be smart about these angles, and
so they pretty much let us write the stories on the show, and then we write the stories on our own show to supplement the stories. So
fantastic. So you're dealing with the flu right now.
Yeah.
Was there any concern that could sideline you?
I thought
there was no way.
I thought for sure I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
The way I asked Matt, I was on the airplane 2 days ago, and I was shaking uncontrollably for 12 hours. I was like, something's wrong with me.
We had a long travel day.
This is not just a flu. I've never been so sick in my life. It was terrible.
Yeah, he looked bad.
As soon as I got some meds in me, right away I felt a lot better. So.
He's gonna be like Michael Jordan during that. What was it? Was it against Portland?
Yeah, the big
no,
flu
Utah
game.
or Utah. Yeah.
I thought it was against
Utah, Game 6.
Really?
Yep.
Man, I thought I knew my
Game 5.
I'm in Chicago. I should be embarrassed.
Game 5 on the road. I know because I just watched the game.
Oh, I'm thinking of the game where he went like this. He's like, what the heck? Because he kept making all those baskets.
Yeah, that was Blazers.
That's Blazers.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's been some talk, some WWE wrestlers out there saying that for that company signing you to was a quote unquote priority.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts or comments on that at this point?
Contract season's here, right?
Yeah. I think everyone wants to sign us right now, which is a good problem to have. Yeah. It just shows that the interest is high, so it's great for us.
I don't know if it's been 20 years since there's been wrestlers that have had the leverage that we currently have, and we realize that. We're very aware of where we're at right now, the position that we have. So next year will be the year that we get paid, no matter where we end up wrestling.
Great. All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
I think there will be some WWE guys in attendance, and I think R-Truth, Ron Killings, will be performing at the event for me.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome! Any of those names you can reveal that might be showing up? Any news we can break here on the interview?
And you're just gonna have to tune in and find out.
There you go. That's what we call a teaser in this business, right? So that's good. I like that. So are you still watching pro wrestling like WWE, Impact? Are you still keeping an eye on what's going on?
I'm not like current on storylines, but I know the injuries and who's out there right now. I saw that Crown Jewel tag team match between Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Undertaker and Kane.
All right, fair enough. I wanted to get your take on that. What about Becky Lynch? She's really blown up this last little bit. Have you been paying attention to her and what she's been accomplishing?
Yep, running both divisions. I'm not sure she still has the title in both, but like, it's very cool. That's a cool thing about pro wrestling, how someone just explodes like that, and all of a sudden there's electricity with everything that they touch. And Becky is one of those dream stories. She's been a wrestling fan all her life. Quit her job at an airline to come and try her hand at it, and it's amazing to see the success, see the passion, and who doesn't like an accent.
And her rival, Ronda Rousey, came from MMA to WWE. What were your thoughts on her transition and what she's been able to accomplish?
Yeah, great, man, great. I find that people with a background in some kind of discipline transition very well into pro wrestling. Very similar techniques, very similar mindsets, and how you train and how you prepare for the shows. So it wasn't a surprise to me that she has like transitioned and done it very quickly, I would say. And you just need a little bit of something for them to push and market, and you're a star.
Who was your favorite pro wrestler growing up?
Growing up, guys like Danny Hodge and Dr. Death, Steve Williams were household names. So those were my favorite. And then in the Monday Night Wars, I was a big Kevin Nash guy. That was really when I first started watching. Like junior high and whatnot. And then, of course, all-time Kurt Angle. Everything he does is just realistic. The counters are so tight, so crisp. It just makes wrestling entertaining and fun to watch.
Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com, FightfulWrestling.com, FightfulMMA.com, with a face that you've probably seen a time or two on any number of those, because he embodies crossover in the broadcasting sense. Cyrus Fees, how are you?
Doing great, Sean. Yeah, man, just dropped some pretty big news this week. So getting ready to head to Chicago. It's going to be a big StarCast weekend. I'm pretty excited about it.
So you're handling some broadcast duties for StarCast. Tell me how that deal came about.
Well, Jeff Jarrett obviously is a big part of that. So there's 3 people involved. You have Fight TV. And then you have Global Force Entertainment, and then, of course, Conrad Thompson. So everybody kind of joined forces on that one, no pun intended. And, it all came together. And as soon as I heard that Jeff was involved, I reached out to him, and I was like, man, I'm available that weekend. I want to be a part of it. And over a period of time, we made it happen. So I'm pretty honored to be a part of it. There's a lot of big broadcasters that are already there. So for me to get the nod over some of those names is great. Not obviously not demeaning them, but just to be able to do it with all of them being in the same place is pretty amazing.
So when did this deal get finalized? Was it this week as it was announced, or had you had to kind of keep this secret for a while?
Late last week. But yeah, I mean, it was over a period of time, and obviously compared to some of the people that are there, I've only had a cup of coffee in the pro wrestling business. Started off that really low key with some stuff here in the Southeast, but then I've just been doing MMA and combat sports for such a long time. I did the Global Force thing, so I made some really good connections with Jeff, and Jeff likes what I do, and he's trying to get me some more work and keep me busy, and that's like a dream come true for me. So it's all good.
You mentioned Jeff liking you. Obviously, you were a part of Global Force Wrestling's AMP tapings.
Yes.
So did you know Jeff prior to that?
I did not. I heard about it, and I just started hounding him, to be honest with you. I had a friend that had his email address. I started sending stuff in, and he had a really good rapport with me. He liked what I did, but I mean, it took a lot of hustling. And you can ask Jeff, and anybody can ask Jeff. Nobody's ever been as persistent as I have. It's because I love the business. I'm a big time wrestling fan, and I would have never got into MMA or fighting had I not been a wrestling fan. So to be a part of the business is amazing to me. I had such a good time on the AMP tapings, meeting the guys, working with the guys, and learning, the tricks of the trade and everything that goes with it, because it is a lot different than fight commentating. There are some things that are the same, but it's definitely different. It's a different world altogether. So
you worked there with Chael Sonnen. He was also on the air, did a little bit of character work. What was that experience like? Because he, like you, well, I mean, he was primarily MMA. You've dabbled in both. I don't want to say dabbled. Yeah. You've been involved in both for so long. But this was maybe the first time that Chael really made the leap to pro wrestling work?
Pretty seamless, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was really good. I think it was a really good choice by everybody at Global Force. I think they saw that in him. It's something, obviously, his whole persona and everything that is Chael Sonnen is a direct reflection of professional wrestling, which I think is a really, really easy transition just in general. I think there's a lot of MMA fans that fight it off and say, oh, no, that stuff's fake, blah, 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 blah. But at the end of the day, your Conor McGregor's and your Chael Sonnens and everybody that has a bit of a mouthpiece on them, that's a direct reflection of the business. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think they can coincide very, very well. And I think it's starting to get a little bit better in that respect because there's so much crossover now. I mean, it's getting crazy.
Couple more things about the Global Force Wrestling work that you did. They didn't air for a couple of years. What were your thoughts as that went on? Because I would talk to Jeff here and there, and he would say, oh, we're working on something. And then last year, he was like, they will be broadcast somehow this year. Yeah. And it ended up happening. What were your thoughts as that kind of time went on? And we were looking up and down the roster maybe last week. Almost all these guys are in WWE or Impact now.
Only that one big word, man, is frustrating. That I thought it had a lot of promise to branch out and do its own thing. And I think Jeff saw a lot of that. And he was literally, talking to these different companies, and they're giving him all really, really positive reviews. And this thing's going to happen. This thing's going to happen. But one thing you learn, and I've learned it through the MMA space and now with the wrestling with Global Force, is that the TV landscape is very, very difficult. And it's really, really mucky waters. And it is really time intensive. And very rarely do you have a product that you can streamline and get directly on the air. So there's a lot of talking, a lot of negotiating, a lot of third parties that have to be involved. And I think Jeff was prepared for that. But obviously, it didn't quite go the way that everybody wanted it to. But at the same time, I got to look back at it as an awesome experience. Obviously, you think about what could have been. But I don't think the door's shut either. Global Force Entertainment is a thing. I
don't think the door's ever shut when Jeff Jarrett's involved.
Well, no, it never is, and even when he went into the Hall of Fame, there was a lot of people saying, well, he might go into SmackDown, he might do this. Jeff always has to have something going on. I've learned that about him. He's a workhorse. He wakes up 5 o'clock in the morning, and that dude is working until, midnight at least. He never stops. So I don't think, like I said, the door's not closed. I think Global Force could still turn into an entity. Obviously, there's some legal stuff going on. There's some things happening, but we'll see. I think StarCast is a great way to punch Global Force right back there into the forefront. So I'm excited to be a part of that process for sure.
What were your thoughts when you saw Jeff appear on Impact Wrestling in 2015, then again in 2017 with the merger? Was there any thoughts maybe I could get involved in this as well?
Well, I mean, there were calls made and there were opportunities. The problem is that, I have a lot of jobs in MMA. Yeah. And when this is your full-time job, anytime you give up, and I know you know this as well because you've done the broadcasting side of it, you've done commentary. Anytime you miss a show, that's an opening for somebody to take that spot.
That's how I got my jobs. All of them.
What's that?
That's how I got all my jobs.
Exactly. I mean, that's how I got my jobs a lot of the times. So, it was really hard for me to tell a show that's paying me a good amount of money, that I have good rapport with. Hey, sorry, I know you have me booked, but I need to go and do Slammiversary. That was a thing that was a thing that could have happened with Slammiversary and some different roles. And I couldn't do it, and it's one of those things where when you got a family you're taking care of, sometimes you can't quite take those risks. So I wasn't able to do it, and it hurt because I really would have loved to be there. Obviously, Impact is something I grew up with coming out of college, and I still love, the product to a point. So yeah, that one always hurts. But yeah, so it was crazy seeing him on there. I wish I could have been more a part of it. Unfortunately, I couldn't. But like I said, you never know what the future holds. So.
StarCast coming up this week as we film this.
Yes.
What all do you know that you're going to be broadcasting there?
So it's myself and SoCal Val. We're hosting the broadcast. So when you purchase that weekend pass, which I hope you will, $79.99, and you get a $20 fight credit. It's pretty amazing, especially considering all the content you're going to get. It's incredible. You know how many people are paying Patreons and doing this and that with podcasts right now. For you not to do this would be a total mistake. It's going to be insane. So basically, it'll be her and I guiding you through all 4 days. In between the stage shows, we're going to be talking to different talent, different wrestlers, different personalities that are going to be there. And it is literally a who's list. Everybody you can think of that's not really signed to the WWE, every legend, et cetera, they're going to be there. So I'm excited as a fan. You can't help but to mark out a little bit. I'm excited as a fan, but as a broadcaster, obviously, I want to hit this thing out of the park and give everybody the most bang for their buck. And yeah, man, I just think it's really cool. I listen to the podcast. I'm sure you do too. So many of the ones that are being featured. So, as a podcast listener, as a fan, et cetera, it's pretty awesome. Great opportunity.
So this is going to be on the Fight TV broadcast, correct?
Yes, it is. Everything that I do will be on the Fight TV broadcast. Also, we are going to have Twitch as well. So there's going to be some stuff on Twitch as well. We're going to be on the main page of Twitch all 4 days. There's some separate Twitch programming that's going to be on there. So keep an eye out for that. There's going to be a lot of stuff. I think Lapsed Fan's going to be on there, and quite a few different things. That's one of my favorites is Lapsed Fan. I love that stuff.
I love their WrestleMania retrospectives they did with Dave Meltzer. Those were incredible. And for somebody who didn't come into I didn't really start watching wrestling until 1990, 91 as a child. Those were a great look back. So StarCast this week, tons of stuff going on. I mean, tons of stuff. Let people know how they can order that.
Well, you just go to fight.tv. You can do it from your computer or you can do it from your phone. Either way, however you order it, it's going to go to your account so you can switch back and forth. I love the app personally because you can cast it to your TV very, very easily and very seamlessly. That's one thing I've liked about the app since the get-go. So yeah, $79.99, and then you get the $20 credit to watch any other pay-per-view or any other content on Fight. And Sean, I mean, there's a ton of stuff, from Ring of Honor to just everything, Joey Janela's stuff. I mean, there's just so many cool programs.
I call MMA on there sometimes.
What's that?
I call MMA fights on there sometimes.
Exactly. Well, and almost all my products are on there as well. I mean, Brave Combat Federation's on there. Fight Nights is on there. So there's a lot of the stuff that I do that's on Fight. But yeah, it's going to be good. The Roast of Bruce Pritchard, super psyched about that. That's when it's going to be good. The Monday Night War debate, that's going to be on the first night on Thursday. I think that's pretty much the crown jewel of Thursday's broadcast. So that'll be Bischoff and Pritchard on opposite sides. That's going to be a lot of fun. Man, just a little bit of everything for old school, new school. You're going to have everything you could possibly need as a wrestling fan. So it's going to be off the chain, if you will.
So we're at a point in combat sports and pro wrestling where it doesn't seem like there's a lot of room for innovation. I know you were a part of Hip Show, which was incredibly innovative.
A hip Show name drop. Very nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it.
Is there anything that you've been requested to call and you're like, well, I didn't see that one coming? I mean, there are night fights, for the love of God.
There are. It's so funny. I do commentary even from my house, for some different shows. And I just did a Chinese kickboxing show called Glory of Heroes. And they had a traditional Chinese weapons exhibition. And I had no idea how to call that. I just called it the best I could. I'm like, oh, he's hitting him with a stick, and this guy hit him with a stick, and I think he won. They didn't give me any parameters. They didn't even give me anything to go on. But, I've been called to some interesting places. I've been called to go to Afghanistan for a wrestling tour, and I had to turn that one down. Didn't feel like that was necessarily a good trip I needed to make. But yeah, a little bit of everything. I'm actually just signing with a team-based MMA nation versus nation promotion called Kumite that's already come out officially, but it's in India. Mike Tyson's going to be at the event endorsing it. It's going to be a lot of fun, but it's going to be nation versus nation. But, I think Hip Show is probably the most innovative, wild thing that I've ever done. And I absolutely loved it. I think it had a brighter future than it's got so far. And I still think there's room for it, man. I think people love to see the 2-on-2 aspect with fighting, and it's just a wild time. And it really translates to a live audience as well. It is really, really fun. But yeah.
One of the things our catch wrestling coach used to do to kind of keep us motivated, we would have tag team grappling at the end of every class. And now I'm seeing that at grappling competitions all over the place. That taking an individual sport and making it a team aspect when you have to have those people to grow anyway. As a fighter, I mean, you're not going to get better by training with people who don't know anything all the time. So I think that's always an interesting aspect.
It is. I completely agree. And big props to Casey Oxenine, who I've worked with a ton, and you probably know well. That guy he took the hip show thing, and he did a lot of stuff with grappling as well, with the 2-on-1s and the 2-on-2s, and he's very innovative with that as well. And I think it's great, man. Anytime you can test yourself as a martial artist, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grappler, et cetera, it's only going to make you better altogether. So, yeah, I think that stuff definitely has a place in the sport and all that good stuff.
Cyrus, let the people know where they can follow you on social media.
So, yeah, I'm at Cyrus the Show on Twitter and Instagram. Then, obviously, you can search me on Facebook as well. And, yeah, man, definitely follow me this weekend because I'm going to be having a lot of exclusive content. I think a lot of it's going to go to the Fight TV social media. That being said, I'm going to be posting stuff all weekend long. I'm trying to get my fan base way up there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have everything. And I promise you this, I'm tracking down Brutus, the effing Barber Beef. Oh, that's my guy, man. That's my guy. I already put this on Facebook, but Brutus, D'Lo Brown, Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. Those are my three. Those were my guys growing up. I still love them to this day. They're all going to be at StarCast. So I'm going to have a lot of content on all my social media, so make sure you follow it, and it should be a good time.
Cyrus, thank you so much.
Absolutely, Sean. Thank you so much, and make sure you tune in, StarCast.
Now I am joined by Ring of Honor lead announcer Ian Riccaboni. Ian, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing really well, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. You've got kind of a fascinating trend how you've become that. Have you become the voice of Ring of Honor? For so long it was Kevin Kelly. Now it's Ian Riccaboni. You've worked with a host of different announcers in your time at Ring of Honor too. Tell me, what was your reaction to being told that you were going to be the lead guy moving forward?
Well, I'll tell you, it just about knocked my socks off. I remember I was in a taxi heading to O'Hare Airport, and I was heading back from a work trip, and I knew I was about to go to Texas. We were about to go to Dallas and San Antonio, and it was interesting because I'd heard some things that, okay, you may be calling these shows, and I didn't know for sure. But then I received a call from one of our producers who had kind of filled me in on what was going on, and said that Kevin would not be our full-time announcer, and he had asked me if I'd be interested in assuming, becoming the host of Ring of Honor Wrestling. So I had always had a timeline in my head. Things had always seemed to move a little fast once I got involved, but never this quickly. And in my head, I was ready to give it maybe 5 years or 10 years. And I really hold Kevin in high regard. He's a friend, he's a mentor, somebody that's been a combination of a father figure, a big brother to me. But when I was asked that day, it was a cold January day in Chicago, and I'm from Philadelphia, so I was even kind of out of my element there. I was just excited to get home, but I couldn't believe what I was hearing as I was getting ready to go home. So I said yes right away, because that's all of the time and the effort and the energy and the reps and all the time, the effort and the energy that Kevin had put into me and that our producers had put into me. I said yes right away because I felt confident and comfortable I could grow into the role. But of course, once you accept something that big, just a little bit of human nature, a little bit of doubt starts to set in. Can I really do this? Can I execute at the level that back at HDNet? So, those types of things started to run through my head. But I got pretty confident pretty quickly. I think I've had something like 16 different partners on television at any given time, or 13 partners and 16 combinations or something wild. So it's been fun. I'm really excited, speaking of Chicago, to have a more steady partner. Colt Cabana's been that guy, and BJ when Colt's been unavailable. So I've lucked out into two really good regular partners.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what you thought about Colt Cabana moving into that role. It seems like one that he has taken to very well. He's natural. I mean, of course, he had his podcast forever, so his voice. Most wrestling fans have heard it one way or another. So, what's that been like?
Well, at first, I'm going to be honest. Colt is so charismatic. He's so funny. He's so energetic that it can be at first to work with, because as a wrestler, as part of Ring of Honor's history, a two-time tag champion. He was there at the end of 2002 and then progressed and meant so much to Ring of Honor. And when he came back, whether it be 2010 or 2016 when he made his shocking return, Colt was always one of those guys that I really held in high esteem. And then, of course, with the Art of Wrestling podcast, such great interviews and such great dialogue he has with wrestlers, he really feels, he makes it feel like you're joining him in a conversation with one of his friends. So it was kind of intimidating from that perspective, because my first instinct was, well, what if if Colt is such a professional, Colt is so great, we have to make this work. There's no way it won't. And so when we jumped in, it was so nice to be with someone like Colt, because Colt not only get the rest of making your listener feel like you're a part of what's happening and that you're in the conversation. So I really appreciate having Colt there, because as much of a nice safety blanket Kevin was those first couple months, transitioning to working with just Colt and even just BJ has been incredible, because Colt really understands broadcasting from almost a subliminal level. He's a great communicator. He's a great talker. I'm really excited about the chemistry we formed together. And the only comment that I have there, the only negative that we've heard, I think, is that sometimes we sound alike. And I think, he's from Chicago. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania. So not quite the Midwest, but almost that Midwestern accent. And so the differentiator, if you're ever listening at home, is how he pronounces the word Philadelphia. He pronounces it very quickly. It's almost Philadelphia. and whereas I stretch
it's funny because you kind of sounded like him as you said that.
I think we're roommates on the road a bit now, so just an amazing guy, and he's been really cool too. In a couple of early interviews, once I got the role, I talked about how much Kevin had helped, but Colt really helps from a different perspective and kind of a different level, helping me get into the mind of what a wrestler might be thinking in a match. What a wrestler might be thinking maybe in an interview. And he also really kind of understands it from, again, that almost subliminal communication level, where he's just really good at making folks feel welcome and just making them feel like they're a part of something. And so working with Colt, that's the thing that I hope I learn the most and kind of get through osmosis the most. Because that's why guys like Lance Russell were so revered. And even Bobby Heenan, like the grandfather of professional wrestling, or maybe the uncle. Well, Bobby Heenan was kind of that, almost like the weird uncle everybody had, with the sense of humor and the dirty jokes and he had a little bit of a mean streak. So those guys were so relatable and so easy for fans to really enjoy that. I think that's what I hope to get from Colt as our team progresses.
Now, initially, when you were revealed to be the host of Ring of Honor, there were rumors that Ring of Honor and Kevin Kelly were done working together, but he came back in briefly, like for, I think, maybe a taping or something like that. What was that like working with him after that? Because I'm pretty sure everybody knew that you would be the guy moving forward.
Kevin was nothing but gracious. Kevin, in fact, I'll use this example. At the very first paper, it was 15th anniversary in Las Vegas, and originally the production setup had Colt, Kevin, and myself. And Kevin really went out of his way, to say that, hey, Ian's going to be the lead broadcaster on this pay-per-view. Ian needs to be in the middle so that the folks at home get to see who is kind of quarterbacking this broadcast. And from there on, Kevin had been the same kind of way. The next night we did a TV taping together, he and I. After that, Baltimore, Colt and I called together. But then the last War of the Worlds tour in North America, it was the three of us. And again, Kevin made sure I was in the middle. Kevin made sure that I was the one kind of directing traffic. And in between matches or in between episodes of television, he'd give me some breakdowns and some pointers, and it just really in New Japan. So I'm really thankful that I actually had that transition period, because it's one thing to kind of learn on the job, but it's another to have someone that you trust and that's your mentor and someone that helped you get to where you are to really help you deliver kind of real time in your first couple goes.
So is there anybody, without having to name names, you've kind of had to squeeze blood from a stone with? Because that happens sometimes.
Oh, in terms of commentary, or? Yeah. Oh, I think the biggest thing is if I see somebody on a production sheet that is slated to do commentary, I make sure I get with them, and I make sure that they understand the background of the match, and I make sure that they understand the stakes of the match at a very base level. And a lot of times, if it's somebody that maybe hasn't done a whole lot of commentary, I'll use the example of Cheeseburger, who was very, very good in our Future of Honor Friday bout that we called. Cheeseburger hasn't done a whole lot of commentary, but he was actually very, very good, in my opinion, because he knew the stakes of the match between Will Ferraro, Rhett Titus, and Roppongi 3K, as they're now known. And he knew what was at stake, and he knew where he fit into that picture and how he wanted to kind of guide where he wanted to go. So, with not only as the quote unquote host of Ring of Honor, does there come the responsibility of leading the television broadcast, but it also has that little extra responsibility of sort of coaching and making sure anybody who's on the production sheet to do commentary with you is ready to go. And we've had a lot of really pleasant surprises. I mean, I think everybody kind of would be cast as great interviews, but we've had guys like QT Marshall step in, do some of our Women of Honor Wednesdays, some of our Future of Honor Fridays. He's been terrific. We've had a number of guys. Obviously, Jay Lethal is a great talker. He's been great on commentary, and the world champion Cody has been excellent. But the one guy that doesn't get enough credit is BJ Whitmer, and BJ is a guy that he obviously over a decade of experience in Ring of Honor. He's traveled the globe, really representing Ring of Honor now for I think the greater part of the last 13, 14 years, and just fantastic at commentary. And he provides a level of detail as if he is in the ring, which is a little bit different than Colt. So if you listen to Colt and I, it may sound like we're two friends or two pals talking about wrestling, and then I think you get a different feel with BJ and I. He was in the ring trying to almost strategize what he might do next. So I think he's very underrated. But yeah, I've kind of learned from example back to your original question, and maybe one or two examples where, maybe I personally could have done a little bit better job getting this person ready to go to call the match. So it's happened, but I take the blame on myself, and now have learned to really get those folks up to speed, especially when we have guests.
Oftentimes, any announcer really has additional duties. I know Josh Matthews does a ton of different stuff at Impact. Michael Cole helps bring up and helps produce stuff in WWE. I know Joey Styles did a bunch of stuff in ECW. Is announcing strictly what you do, or do they have you contribute in other ways as well?
I do produce a lot of the web content right now. That's a role that I started to start in. When I first started, I do produce a lot of the web articles. I write those. I love to write. I love to contribute in that way. I do have a little bit of a hand in some of the videos that you might see. Very minimal though, on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Ring of Honor. So in those ways, I'm not as involved as maybe peak Joey Styles was in ECW, or maybe current Jeremy Borash. But I certainly, Ring of Honor is great. It's a family environment. All ideas are welcome. So, I think you'd be surprised to hear maybe who's involved in terms of everybody kind of having a say in the direction of where they're going. And, it's a great environment to foster that creativity. Some of our best television and some of our best pay-per-view events were in large part driven by the and Ring of Honor and how nice of a creative environment it is. And I think the big example to not leave you hanging is, of course, Adam Page, who mysteriously disappeared and then returned back from seemingly the dead, bound at Death Before Dishonor. So,
I love the integration of being the elite. Like Ring of Honor recognized what was hot and they decided to roll with it. I thought that was really good stuff.
Well, and I'll say this about Nick and Matt Jackson and Cody and Marty and Adam and Brandy, the whole being the elite group, even Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, they always let me know when there's a new one. And I have that alert set on my phone, I think like everybody else, to tell me when there's a new YouTube video. So I make sure I hit that and make sure I see it right away. But again, I think one of the ways Ring of Honor can continue to grow because Bullet Club, they have their merchandise in Hot Topic. Why not talk about that? Being the Elite is a big time web series. Why not talk about all the folks that are watching that? We have this great relationship with New Japan, with CMLL, with Rev Pro. When our stars compete there, we want to make sure we're getting content on our websites, on Twitter, on Instagram, on things like that, to really highlight that, hey, our stars are competing around the world, and in a lot of cases, winning big-time matchups. For instance, Flip Gordon, he pinned Ultimo Guerrero just a few weeks ago at the CMLL anniversary show. He just outright legend. Matt Taven went 7-2 in CMLL. So we wanted to make sure that we highlighted that on our on the website and across our social platforms. So, for us, I think the relationship is great. But for me and for a lot of the other folks within Ring of and really show our fans that everything that happens in the world of wrestling, it matters, especially when it comes to our partners, CMLL, New Japan, and Rev Pro.
How does one train to become an announcer? I know you had an interesting arc and how you got involved, and I know the Monster Factory was involved too. I feel bad that you ever had to deal with Danny Cage, but I'm interested to hear the story.
Oh, I love Danny, actually. I might be...
He's okay. He's okay.
Yeah, Danny's a good guy. He's a little tough. It's like tough love, like fatherly love. And, of course, Larry Sharp as well. But Danny, I love Danny. So it's interesting. I always prepared, and I don't know if this was just a function of my guidance counselors that I had in middle school and high school, but I always prepared as if I would never be very supportive teachers that said, if you want to do this, it's unlikely, but here's how we think you can do it. Go to a school with a good broadcasting or communications program. Work your butt off and try and get as many repetitions as possible. When you get out of school, take whatever job you can and just continue to try and climb the ladder until you get a different opportunity. And then I had guidance counselors that said, well, that's not possible at all. You really don't want to do that. You really want to make sure you have a double backup plan, because that's never going to work. So what I did, I went to school for media communications broadcasting at NYU. While I was there, I was cast on an MTV special my first week with Bill Gates. So I thought, this is going to be really easy. I got this. I got it. It's this easy. I just walk in, I get on MTV. It's fine. It didn't turn out that way. There's about a 4-year dark period where I didn't do any TV commercials, anything. I got out of school, I graduated, went to the University of Pennsylvania for a master's degree in, of all things, education management. I got out, I did a public access show, and that's where I actually started to learn the nuts and bolts of putting things together and just some of the outside periphery things that were really important in production. And that was Hump Night with Chris Freed. our largest viewing audience was in the Lehigh County State Prison in Pennsylvania. So we had an interesting viewing segment because it was the only channel that they got. But from there, I started writing for PhilliesNation.com. We started to do a video blog, a vlog, which turned into a public access show on the same channel on Service Electric, which turned into a cable show. I did that for about 3 years, and eventually, toward the end of the run, that. And then my second year into the Phillies show, we did a segment on famous Phillies fans, and I interviewed Blue Meanie at the world famous Monster Factory. And I asked Danny Cage, hey, if my friend wanted to be a wrestling broadcaster, how would he go about it? What would he do? And so, Danny gave me a straight answer, and this is the advice I'd give to everybody. He said your friend would show up in a suit, and your friend would learn how to break down and set up the ring. Your friend would learn everything that goes on in the at a wrestling event, whether it's selling tickets, whether it is setting up chairs, whether it's timing, production, all that fun stuff. And from there, maybe your friend will get some opportunities. So I did that for about 4 or 5 months. And from there, I started interviewing people in the ring. Our ring announcer went AWOL, so I became the ring announcer for a little bit. And then I started calling matches over YouTube. From there, I met Brutal Bob Evans, who but it was Kevin. And so, and then mysteriously it was Kevin Kelly who showed up in the Monster Factory. And Kevin said, hey, guy in a suit, stand up and sell me some tickets. He got 60 seconds. So I stood up and I ran through the night's events, hit my timing, and he said, okay, do it again. And I did it again. From there, I was invited to a Ring of Honor tryout camp. And then from there, I started calling the Future of Honor matches and Women of Honor matches. So it was kind of quick. It was really quick. After 4 years of doing nothing, all of a sudden I'm in the periphery of the second biggest wrestling organization in the United States. And then only a year and a half after that, I started to call full live events. From there, it was only another year before I became the host of Ring of Honor Wrestling. So it has moved very fast, and it's really exciting to know that I probably have less than 250 or professional. So for me, that's really exciting because that motivates me to know, I'm a big believer in the 10,000 hours. You could become an expert in something if you put in 10,000 hours. And to know that I haven't even reached probably a half of 1,000 is really exciting because that means I have so much more room to grow and, so much room to develop the relationship with our Ring of Honor audience and to become the best wrestling broadcaster I can.
So the Ring of Honor tryout, we've heard how tryouts work for wrestlers and things like that. We've never really heard how a tryout works or the tryout camp works for an announcer. What was that process like?
So it's pretty unique for announcers. It's something where it's by invitation only. So with the wrestlers, applicant, if you have X amount of years experience, usually it's 3 to 5 or above 3. Sometimes they waive it if you're kind of a blue chip like Flip Gordon was, or even Leo Rush when we signed him. Usually that's the criteria. Send in some footage, provide some references, that sort of thing. For announcers, it's kind of by invitation only. So we had a fellow named Nick Lendl come in from Pittsburgh, very good ring announcer. We knew that Bobby Cruz had some family commitments coming up, and we knew that there might be an opportunity for a ring announcer. So by referral, we had Nick, who had a lot of good praise, referred to us, and we invited him to come to the camp. So we've had a few come through, myself being one of them. My former partner Matt Ryan had come through that process, as well as Nick. So it's different might do if you're an announcer at a tryout camp. I'll use mine as an example. All of the wrestlers are sort of coached by whoever the lead announcer is. In this case, now it's me. But previously, it was Kevin Kelly. It was usually Kevin Kelly, Adam Cole, and Bobby Fish. Now it's usually a combination of myself, Jay Lethal, and BJ Whitmer. So what we ask is that they cut a 60-second introductory promo about themselves, and it's something that might air on Ring of Honor television. And so if they're able to do that, we give them some pointers, and then we go for round 2. And then the next day we ask them to cut an interview that would air on the very last piece of television before a major pay-per-view. For announcers, it's a little bit different. We sometimes ask them to run down the upcoming card so that we know that they have some knowledge. They know our wrestlers. Sometimes we ask them to sort of do cold interviews where we give them a topic. We give them about 30 seconds. We give them a wrestler who's attending the camp, and then we ask them to go ahead and do the interview kind of on the spot. So those are some of the things that we might ask them to do. Also, at the end of every camp, sometimes we'll do matches. We'll sometimes have the announcers that have come in, that have been referred to us for the tryout, conduct pre-match interviews with some of the contestants, the contestants, the wrestlers. So, it does vary camp to camp, but the announcer part, I've had a lot of people ask me, it is invitation only. Usually it's when we're looking for someone to add to our bench or somebody to kind of step up into a role, like you might see Nick in the next couple weeks, where he may be filling in for Bobby Cruz on some of our shows.
And finally, before we go, Ring of Honor has this great connection with New Japan, and New Japan has kind of made their own foray into the States. How do you think that will affect things, or do you think it will? Because it's not like they're running often, but they've made it known they want to run in the spring, but they're doing like a whole lot of shows with Ring of Honor. It's to the point to where when I think Ring of Honor or New Japan, I almost just assume everybody belongs to both promotions at this point, because it's like you can catch so many different talent on each one.
Yeah, it's been an amazing benefit, and I love the folks at New Japan. I love the folks at Ring of Honor. It's really cliche, but the winners here are the fans. We're able to bring Kenny Omega in for all 4 events, all 4 Global Wars events coming up. That's Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Columbus, and Chicago. He's part of the double main event in Chicago, which will be available on iPay-per-view on Sunday, October 15th. And Ring of Honor is the only place in America Ring of Honor is the only place in America you can see Will Ospreay on pay-per-view, IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion. In fact, Ring of Honor is the only place, period, in America that you can see Suzuki-gun, Minoru Suzuki, Killer Elite Squad. So it's just been such a benefit to our fans that we're able to find great athletes in the United States and Canada. Guys like Punishment Martinez, like Flip Gordon, like TK O'Ryan and Vinny Marseglia, some of these new upcoming talents. Jonathan Gresham, who was probably the world's best kept secret on the independents for quite some time. If it wasn't him, it was Chucky T, who we also have now in Ring of Honor. So we have this great combination of young upcoming stars, and we have this great influx of talent every few months from New Japan. And it's really been cool too, because, for instance, yesterday, the American Nightmare, the ROH World Champion, able to carry the Ring of Honor World Championship belt into Japan. So it's beneficial for both parties, because Ring of Honor is getting exposure in New Japan. New Japan's getting exposure here with Ring of Honor in the United States. And I think our goals work very similarly, New Japan and Ring of Honor. I think there's great synergy there. I think it's allowed us to build and promote events that you could only find in Ring of Honor. And, whether it's the Global Wars Tour coming up, or even Supercard of Honor, which Hiroshi Tanahashi is going to be at, as well as some other big stars you'll find out soon on ROHWrestling.com. It's such a relationship that suddenly we've gone from, in some major markets, getting 600 fans through the door, 800 fans, 1,000, to now all of a sudden in Chicago, 2,600 fans bought tickets. You take it to Supercard of Honor. Last year, Lakeland, Florida, 3,600, our biggest crowd ever. This year, we're aiming a little bit higher. We're going for a building that normally seats 10,000 for a basketball configuration, a little bit less than that, when you include our stage setup and whatnot. but the floor's already sold out. The floor sold out almost before the tickets for the general public went on sale. So it's kind of incredible. The relationship with New Japan really benefits Ring of Honor in a way that allows us to grow. And I think you may have heard my son Zach just there. He said hi. But the relationship really helps Ring of Honor grow long term, as well as New Japan grow long term. So I think everybody's excited about that. And just an interesting stat for you as we head to Global Wars. Ring of Honor is 43-44-1 in direct head-to-head competition with New Japan stars. So our balance is Good Japan stars as well, and they're 13-5 in title matches. So in the Global Wars tour coming up, this really shows you that Ring of Honor really brings it to these New Japan stars when they come over to the United States.
It didn't seem like that for a while. It seemed like New Japan was winning everything, like for a good solid 6 to 7 months. There were people even kind of questioning the partnership for a while. But it seems like it's worked out incredibly well, especially with the emergence of some of the – and some of these guys, like I'm wondering, like, well, how would you even quantify that? Because they're regulars in New Japan. They're regulars in Ring of Honor. And I like that. I love the integration of the two. To the point to where you've got a guy like Daniel Bryan posting things on Twitter. Oh, this is interesting. Stuff like that, like teasing. That can't hurt either.
You know what? Cody, and I'll take it back to Cody. Cody is
brilliant the way he's marketed himself.
Absolutely. He's a guy that had this giant machine behind him and became a big star. I would argue he's even a bigger star now that he's jumped out of the machine and kind of created something all of its own and all unique and all his. And, I can't say too much about him engaging a former ROH world champion. as you may have noticed on some of our broadcasts, I don't want to get hit with one of those C&Ds either. However, he is so creative. He's so clever. The Young Bucks are. That's just a brilliant partnership there. And, those guys have brought so much visibility and so much attention to Ring of Honor. It's crazy. And it's something organic. It's not something where, the Being the Elite stuff is just something that I happened to watch because I had been friendly with those guys and and have synergy because we know our fans. We have a ton of loyal fans, hundreds of thousands, and our fans are great because they consume each part of the product. And so it's our duty to really tie all those stories together because guys like Cody, guys like the Young Bucks, Marty Scurll, Kenny Omega, Adam Page, Brandy Rhodes, those guys are all working to do it on their part. So it's our duty as Ring of Honor to really keep that up as well.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, we encourage our viewers to watch all the Ring of Honor programming. I don't know by the time they hear this part of the interview if it'll be Global Wars or any upcoming tour, but they can also catch Ring of Honor TV weekly. I love that you all put that on your website as well. There's no reason for anybody to not catch that show now.
No, I mean, it's on ROHWrestling.com. It's on all Sinclair. It's on large like, and I might get in trouble for this because I know we like to send people to our own website, but I like, I got a good friend Mike who runs FightTV. Fight.tv, and the Fight TV app is awesome. And I hop in the chat room from time to time. It makes it so easy. You can watch on your iPad, you can watch on your iPhone, your Android, and you can stream it. You can Chromecast it, so you can watch it live Mondays at 7 p.m. or you can push it right to your Chromecast. And I understand now that there's some Roku capability as well. So if you have a Chromecast or a Roku, you can watch Ring of Honor anytime you want on Fight.tv. So a lot of great ways to watch it. Like you said, there's no excuse. And, I'm excited for the Global Wars Tour. It's going to be the first time ever that Ringside members are going to be able to live stream 2 live events. So Saturday in Pittsburgh, we're going to be at Stage AE at 7:30 p.m. bell time. And then we have a little bit of an earlier start in Columbus on Saturday, where is being by Kushima. And then if this does air before October 15th, that's the big one. I believe it's the second largest crowd in Ring of Honor history, double main event. It's going to be Bullet Club versus Search and Destroy, 8-man tag team, and of course the very first United States title defense where Kenny Omega, the cleaner, defends against a man who's beaten him before, Yoshihashi, at Chicago's Frontier Fieldhouse. So, we're really looking forward to this, and I'm hoping by the end of the weekend that 43-44-1 record, I'm hoping that one game under 500 turns into maybe one over 500 in the 12 head-to-head bouts that we'll see at Global Wars.
Also, I think it speaks volumes that Sinclair owns all these channels, but is still willing to put Ring of Honor on Fight on the website, things like that. It's not just all their channel. It shows that they really do care about the health of Ring of Honor. It's not just something in the back of their mind. But Ian, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Sean.
Take care.
Thanks.
Guys, we are here with Deonna Purrazzo. You've seen her on SmackDown Live. You've seen her on Ring of Honor, Impact Wrestling, Stardom, NXT, a little bit of everywhere. Deonna, where are they going to see you next?
Oh,
Dancing with the Stars?
Maybe. I hope so. Next, I will be debuting for Rise and Shimmer.
Nice. How's that going to work? When does that happen?
So that is not this weekend, but the following weekend. So July 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Nice, nice. So we talked a little bit about, or I mentioned that they've seen you on NXT and SmackDown Live. You were a part of the angle that launched La Luchadora. Now,
yes.
How many tweets did you get accusing you of being La Luchadora during that period?
I mean, I still get tweets about it, or if people come up and meet me, ask me about it. So, countless. I couldn't tell you how much.
Were you ever under the hood?
I don't know.
Oh.
No. It was revealed to be Mickie James, so I don't know who it was.
Well, we'll just trust that it was her. Many may know, many may not know that you actually went through a WWE tryout at one point. What was that process like for you?
I think it was a bit of a weird situation for me because I had already worked NXT quite a few times before I had been given a tryout. So I knew a lot of the coaches and the trainers and a lot of the superstars that run the camp and help out with it. So it was a unique situation because I kind of felt, I don't want to say comfortable, but I didn't really have anything to prove because they had seen everything that I had. You know what I mean? I think it was a bit more of like a formality than anything because I had been on their programming for months straight at that point.
Who's the person that reaches out to you to say, hey, we like you, we're going to give you a tryout? Do you hear about that like when you're in town for NXT, or does somebody give you a call?
For me, it happened, I wrestled Nia Jax on NXT my very first time, and right after they were like, hey, we're going to give you a tryout, you should receive information in the next few weeks. So it kind of happened in person for me. But I think typically you'd get like an email saying we invite you, stay tuned for a formal invitation. But for me, it was just kind of like, you're going to do this.
I've had some people that would tell me that it's the most grueling thing they've ever been through. We've got Matt Riddle who said that it was second nature to him. How did you feel during that? Because I've seen them live, the tryouts, and they want to test you. They want to make sure that you're not going to blow up.
Yeah. I think coming in as a wrestler, it's kind of, at least my opinion on it was, if I could make it through the first month of wrestling training, you can make it through that. But it's not as much physical as it is mental. And for me, a lot of like the cardio drills and the blow-up drills, I just kept trying to tell myself, like, you wrestled an hour in front of Rip Rogers, you've done this, you've done that, like, you could get through this. So mentally, I think it's more challenging than it is physically. But I will say that I came out of it with such a respect for people who aren't wrestlers and have this opportunity and take it head on because, a flip bump is second nature to a wrestler, but as a 6'6", 260-pound NFL linebacker, you know what I mean? That's not something you would ever do in your life. So I think for people who aren't wrestlers that have a goal of becoming a WWE superstar and this is their way in, I think it's a lot more grueling.
I remember Taz telling me once that if he's at the supermarket and if he slips on milk, he's going to fall and he's going to be okay, while an NFL player might not be, just because he knows how to take care of himself. I know you're not allowed to reveal to us if you're going to be in the Mae Young Classic, but what are your thoughts on WWE running a tournament like that? They're going all in.
Yeah, I think it's such a great moment in women's wrestling, and I'm so excited, whether I'm a part of it or not, to see women get that opportunity. I think we've worked really hard the last few years, and even beyond that, just to get women to where we are today and give us this platform. So I think it's really, really awesome that WWE is just embracing it full on, and they're going to give 32 women the best opportunity that they can be given.
What do you think of Mae Young being given the distinction of having the tournament named after her? A lot of times she, I don't want to say lived in the shadows of Moolah, but Moolah is a lot of times the first person you think of, and then even more recently, you know, they romanticize Trish Stratus and Lita and what they did for women in the WWE, but Mae Young getting a lot of love.
Yeah, I think it's great because they're covering a lot more history than that's been covered prior, and I think they're shining a really great light on a really great person. So I'm really, really happy.
Now, Deonna, you're incredibly young, and we always have people asking, like they'll send in stuff to our contact form, like, how do we get involved in wrestling? How did you get involved in wrestling, and at such a young age?
I grew up watching wrestling, and I watched it with my brother since I was 9. So as soon as I saw women, I knew that one day I would want to partake in wrestling, and I thought, you know, if they could do that, I could do that. I could be good at that one day, I think. And as soon as I turned 18, I got a part-time job. I graduated high school, and I went to a wrestling school. That was the first thing I wanted to do before anything. So I kind of started as early as you can here, and yeah.
There's one thing I've noticed about you in particular since like I've had you on social media and stuff. In addition to training with Damien, you're training with Rip Rogers. You're involved with the Monster Factory and some of those people as well. You're going over to Japan. You're dipping your toes in a little bit of everything. Was that something that maybe your trainer instilled in you, or something that you knew straight off the bat you wanted to do?
I think straight off the bat, I kind of wanted to do that. Never in my mind could I have fathomed, like, oh, you would work for WWE and Ring of Honor and TNA all in 2 weeks. Like, that was never a goal of mine that I thought could ever be possible. And growing up, I was a WWE fan. I didn't know much about Ring of Honor or TNA, and I just knew Japan was where the best people went to wrestle. So Japan was always a goal of mine, and it started more so once I got involved with wrestling and with Damien and Rip, just pushing me to learn every aspect of wrestling, to be able to adapt anywhere and use my training no matter what situation I'm in. So I think as I started wrestling and as I started to grow as a wrestler, that more came natural to me, to just want to be involved in whatever I could be involved in.
You wrote actually for us a little bit about your experience in Japan. What was that like? Are you heading back over there anytime soon?
Hopefully. I think either by the end of the year or in the new year, that'll be able to get back with Stardom. But like I said, it was always a goal of mine. I had every book about wrestling and every DVD and every magazine, and the people that inspired me the most were people who had been able to say that they went to Japan. So in my mind, it was always like, if you're a good wrestler and you know your craft, and you went to Japan and you learned and you trained. So to be able to get that opportunity so early on in my career was just an amazing feeling, and I jumped at that opportunity. There was no doubt that I was going to go because it was something that I always wanted to do. So the more that I could go back, the better at this point.
Were there any like cultural hurdles there? I mean, you're in Japan. I assume you don't speak Japanese.
I don't.
So what kind of culture shock was that?
I think, like, as a foreigner going in with Stardom, a lot's taken care of for you. And a lot of the girls, when I had first gotten there, I was there with Viper and Kaylee Ray, and those two have toured with Stardom quite a bit. So the culture shock wasn't as prominent for me, because I had girls that could teach me the train system or taught me the little bit of Japanese I needed to know to get by. It wasn't just me immersing myself into this. I had people that were willing to help me. But the more that I stayed, the more I realized, like, women are so submissive there, and, like, people just walk into you if you stop moving at the train station, or, they expect women to move out of the way for men. So things like that it's not like that here, and everyone just moves for everyone, and things like that really, like, there was one point that I was just like, oh my God, I don't know how anyone deals with this, because I was just getting, like, trampled in the train station. But besides that, like, that was probably the only moment that I was like, oh God, I can't do this. Everything else was, I had a lot of help and a lot of support with good friends.
I saw that you also teamed with Shayna Baszler over there.
Yes, I did quite a lot.
Former UFC star. Did like you girls do training together, anything like that?
Yeah, so Stardom has us in a dojo 3 days a week. And what was really cool was the senpais who run training let Shayna train quite a bit. So we got to learn a bit more MMA style things, or, just a lot of the conditioning that Shayna does at her gym at home. So more than just learning from her in a technical aspect of pro wrestling, we got to do a lot of MMA inspired things. So that was fun.
Yeah, I know that her trainer, Billy Robinson, is really highly regarded over there. So I figured that would be a simple transition for her. Now, the thing that I always ask anybody who has spent any extended period of time with Rip Rogers, do you have any crazy-ass Rip Rogers stories? And it's been over a year since I've asked you this question,
Yeah.
so I get the feeling that the last answer probably isn't the best answer.
I honestly couldn't remember what my last answer was. And I haven't seen him in quite a long time, but I'm trying to.
That doesn't keep anybody from having crazy ass Rip Rogers stories. Though those can happen remotely.
Yeah, I think. I'm trying to think now. I mean, for me, he's always been really crazy. And the craziest thing was I got to wrestle Mike Mondo for an hour, and that was the first time that I had met Rip, and he was like, "So Deonna's gonna go an hour, and this is Mike Mondo, and you two can get in the ring, ring the bell." And it was not like I didn't have a moment to be like, what? You know what I mean? I think I had been wrestling I had maybe 8 or 9 like matches live. Like, I didn't know how to wrestle for an hour, but he just kind of threw me to the wolves, and he is just crazy.
How'd it work out for you? That Mike Mondo, a former WWE Tag Team Champion, also appeared on SmackDown last year. But you're in there for an hour early on, and he does that. Like, all of his students go an hour. It's like mandatory.
Yeah. It was crazy at first because I was like, I don't even know what half of these things that he's calling are, But Mike is just amazing, and if I didn't know what it was, he could get himself in it or do something else at a moment's notice where I'm like, I don't know. And about like 20 minutes in, I remember thinking like, well, if I just die, then it's over, and I don't have to do this anymore. It's so okay. Just die. But you get like a second wind, and it was a really great accomplishment for me. And Mike and I are really great friends now, so it's funny to be able to look back and see where I was then and kind of see my growth and my progression.
So as we wrap up this conversation, people have seen you everywhere. You've been all over the place. Would you have expected to have been all the places you've been already? I mean, you just had, your 23rd birthday earlier this month, right?
Yes. No, not at all, to be completely honest. I don't know. It was never, when I decided I was going to become a professional wrestler, it was never an option whether I could be successful or not, because I believed in myself from day one that this is something I could do. I could be good at this. And but how fast it happened, and I just believe everything happens for a reason. And I've been placed in a lot of really good situations with a lot of really good people to help me and guide me along the way. So it's not something that I've done myself. I've had not even just Damien and Rip, but so many other people vouch for me and help me to become who I am today and to be as successful as I am today. So it's just kind of mind blowing to think in December will be 5 years since I started training, but I feel like I've been doing this forever.
Deonna Purrazzo, I want to thank you so much for joining me. When are they going to get a Dancing Queen pro wrestling t-shirt?
They better get on it soon. That's why I keep putting out those videos.
We fully expect to see it. Where can they follow you on social media?
Everyone can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Deonna Purrazzo.
Deonna, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate it so much.
James Lynch here for Fightful with Jake Hager, who's going to be making his MMA debut this Saturday at Bellator 214. And Jake, we're finally here, finally talking about your fight. How is this fight week compared to say, going in for a WWE match? Has there been any similarities, or how have things been different?
Well, this is definitely one of the biggest matches of my life, bar none. So I'm relating a lot of this to WrestleMania week, the road, the WrestleMania, the lead up to WrestleMania. A lot of similarities with it, and then a lot of differences. I feel like I've been able to enjoy this week because I had a great camp and my body's in great shape, and I know that I've done the work. So I'm not feeling any pressure right now, because when you go out there in the cage locks, I think you forget about all that. Whereas, with the bright lights of WrestleMania, you have to remember still so much stuff. It's a little more nerve-wracking, which is kind of funny, actually.
What does it mean to make your debut on the same card as Fedor Emelianenko, one of the all-time greats in the heavyweight division?
To debut professionally for Bellator MMA is one thing, but to debut on one of the biggest cards in MMA history is another thing entirely. It's quite the honor. I know a lot of people are going to say cherry picking or whatever, but I deserve to be here, and I'm going to prove that on Saturday, and I really don't care what everyone else says about it.
Have you fanned out at all? Like, have you seen Fedor's here, but have you kind of geeked out a little bit?
Oh yeah. Every time he walks by, it's like, Fedor. Aaron Pico just walked by. I just met him for the first time. I was really looking forward to that. Fellow wrestlers. I met Ryan the other day at XM. Yeah, great guy. And him and I have history going back to college together. We were both he was at Arizona State. I was at Oklahoma, so we would compete against each other. Not each other, but our teams would then. So I am new to the MMA world, so this whole thing is just fun, and it's kind of surprising. I thought it was going to be a little more nerve-wracking.
I spoke to Ryan Bader earlier, and I asked him if he'd be open to going in the WWE, because he's done everything else. He's come over to Bellator. He could be a double champ. How do you think he'd do in WWE?
Great-looking guy that can talk and move and athletic. He'd do very well, There's a lot of similarities with amateur wrestling and professional wrestling, so I think he would transition very fast, like I did.
When we spoke before, I know Josh Rafferty, if that name sounds familiar, season 1 of The Ultimate Fighter, has been training you. How did the rest of camp go working with him, and how much of an asset was he?
I cannot say enough about Josh Rafferty. He was the first person I called back in March of 2017 and had this serious conversation about going on this journey and really letting me know what it's going to be like. And, I'm coming from Division I Oklahoma, and I'm like, oh yeah, I've done hard training. And he tried to explain to me, give me a picture of it. I had no idea. So it's really special to have someone like that go on a journey like this with me, which is so big and so huge and a part of my life now. It's been great. I call him the mad scientist. He's the reason why I have abs right now, and he's the reason I'm going to hit a left kick. What? Nope. Yeah.
What are we going to see in the cage on Saturday? Because you got the wrestling background, but I'm sure you've been working on your striking as well.
Well, lucky for me, I am new to this, so it's going to be easy for me to keep it simple in there and stick to what I am good at. I'm going to use my length, I'm going to use my reach, and I'm going to use my wrestling. And then other than that, I hope to show a great footwork for a heavyweight.
Like I told you last time when we did our interview, we're not going to get out of here without talking some pro wrestling. All Elite Wrestling, I hear they made a big announcement. Just your reaction to that, I was supposed to ask you that.
Oh, about the MGM Grand? Yeah. Hey, the landscape of professional wrestling is changing right now, and it's awesome to see that. It's great for professional wrestlers. It's even better for professional wrestling fans because the product that is being put out right now is top-notch, and it's only going to get better, and it's only going to get more available and become more of a household name. So I'm super excited about it. It's one of those things that pro wrestlers have talked about for years. You know, we want competition. Not just to compete with WWE, but competition makes everyone better. So it's going to raise the bar, and I look forward to seeing what they can do.
What about Season 5 of Lucha Underground? Just your reaction to that.
Jake Strong is the current Lucha Underground champion. I have many names, but that's me, Jake Strong. I have no idea, actually. They were very excited after last season finish, which was April of 2017. And they wanted to go into Season 5 right then, but it's been crickets. So maybe we can egg them to come out of their cave a little bit and make an announcement as well.
We're looking forward to your fight on Saturday. Thanks again for the time, Jake.
Hey.
Appreciate it.
Guys, I am here with the one, the only Diamond Dallas Page, DDP, Hall of Famer. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good. Today I'm in Stockton, California. I'm getting ready to do a baseball game. It's great because a lot of the legends, Hall of Famers, they get to do these tours with these baseball teams. And this is a single A team, but I go from single A, double A, triple A, and I end up going out there, and I don't throw that pitch because my shoulder don't really work like that. I'm not throwing anything in the dirt, so I'll grab a young kid and let him come out there and do the baby face thing, let him throw the ball, and then I'll sign autographs for a while, and then head on down, head on home. So today,
DDP Yoga taking over. You're out on the West Coast now.
DDP Yoga is pretty much all over the world. I'm going to actually be going to UK in September. My wife is Brenda. She's setting us up a tour. We start at the Fanatic Expo, which is I can't remember the name now. Hargate. I can't remember the name of the city up there. But it's a big expo that they do there, like a little Comic-Con thing, and we're also going to do a DDP Yoga workshop there. Then we're going up to Scotland and doing a Glasgow, and we're not just doing DDP Yoga workshops and signings. I'm also doing an inspirational conversation with DDP, which also turns into a Q&A, and all my stuff's inspiring. None of it's like negative about anything, because that's just not who I am. And then we're also going to do the Comic-Con, the signings, and the workshop. So we'll be over there for 3 weeks. We'll do Birmingham, London, Manchester. So we're going to be all over there.
Talk about inspiring. When you gave that Hall of Fame speech, I was like, what can this guy say that he hasn't already said before, much less multiple times to me? And you knocked it out of the ballpark. That seemed like a real special moment. Obviously it was, but you made that a special moment for everybody else.
Oh, man.
What was that like?
Thank you for saying that. I worked really hard on it. It was so cathartic for me to actually prepare that, because there was so many people, from Jody Hamilton, the assassin, back in the day, a legendary main eventer, just an amazing worker in the ring. He was my first teacher. He was the first guy to really believe in me down at the power plant. Dusty, unfortunately, he wasn't here for it, but he knew how I felt. Being able to thank Jake in front of everybody, being able to thank Ric Flair, Scott Hall, Kevin Nash, Johnny Ace, Terry Taylor, so many people. And I wanted it to chronologically go along my career. And I probably rewrote that speech I bet you I rewrote it 100 times. And I knew I had to be somewhere around 15 to 20 minutes. And when I told them that it was, might go as long as 26, 27, when they heard it, because, WWE wants to hear what you're going to do. You have to remember, no matter what you want to say, it's their TV. And maybe there's certain guys that they don't care. But, like certain guys that come in, I'm sure Bruno got to say whatever he wanted to, and Hulk or whatever. But when they heard what I planned and how I was going to do the voices, they were like, "They keep it under 30 and you're good." And that was such a feeling of confidence walking out there, because I knew I wasn't going to be anywhere near 30. And I knew it was funny. I knew it was heartfelt. I knew people were going to cry. You know, I knew they were going to laugh. The most important thing is I wanted them to be inspired. And like, you look at my career, like while I was writing this, are you familiar with a player's tribute? The player tribute?
Yeah.
Okay, so have you read any of A Letter to My Younger Self? Have you read any of those? Those are unbelievable. Derek Jeter put it on the map because he did the first one that went over huge. I read his, Ray Allen's is unbelievable. The basketball player, his is unbelievable. And it really set the tone for what I wanted to do because I'm actually the first wrestler that they're going to do a letter to my younger self. And it's long, like way longer than my speech. But I was trying to make it shorter, and they kept trying to bring out more stuff in me. I'm like, man, this is so long. They're like, yeah, it's awesome. I go, you want it this long? They were like, yes, we love, because I'm toning my stuff down because it already sounds impossible, and it was, and I did it. And not just in wrestling, because it talks about a little piece of everything, but it was so cathartic, again, going through. There was times in that speech before I did it, when I was doing it to myself or to an imaginary Dusty or whoever was there I was talking about, it would stop me in my tracks. And I would start weeping, like, wow, like this is, and it was at different points all the time. And right before I walked out there with my 4 daughters, I literally looked up and said, Dream, pull me through this, bro. You know, and that was like, he was with me that whole time. It was super sweet. And the really coolest thing was, you know, that really how it ended with such a bang. You know, Ric Flair and I have had heat with each other on and off in our career. And at some point, I didn't want that. You know, I didn't want to feel that way about Nate. I didn't want him to feel that way about me. And I had talked to him at a autograph signing probably about 8 years ago. And I just came up to him and said, Nate, you got a sec? He's like, sure. And I pulled him off to the side and I said, listen, Nate, you know, I know over our career we've had some heat with each other. He's like, Diamond, don't worry about that. And I'm like, Nate, I'm not worried about that, man. I'd like to fix it, man. I said, I know I've said some stuff. You said some stuff. I go, I don't care. I don't know how it happened. I don't care. I go, I don't want to feel like this about you, man. I love you. And I just don't want you to feel that way about me, man. I said, I'd love to start all over again. And I put my hand out. I said, I'm Diamond Dallas Page. And he gave me a big hug. And, you know, and that was it. Like, it was over at that point. And years later, you know, I've always wanted to say, like, dude, like, you put me over for that first world title. You know, Sting, Hogan, and you. I mean, like, that's the night I won the world title. And I'd said thank you before, but I really wanted to know how thankful I was, because it put me, and I said it in my speech, that he put me one step closer to that podium that night, you know, and I wanted to let him know that it meant a lot to me, and I'll never forget it. So the night before I'm going home, I see him at the bar, and I come up, and we're talking, and he goes, what time are you leaving tomorrow? Now, we both live in Atlanta, you know, and he said, what time are you going home tomorrow? I said, my flight's at 7:30. He was like, oh. He goes, who booked that? I go, not me. He goes, fuck that. I got a Learjet. You and Brenda coming home with me. And I'm like, Nate, I got bags. I got all those bags. He goes, send them with FedEx. You're coming home with me. Won't take no for an answer. And that was when all the storms hit that screwed up all the airlines and everything. And thank God, because I don't know how long I would have been on the ground waiting. Probably got there at 6 o'clock or whatever, and maybe not even taking off that night. But we finally got out in his Lear and got back. And then, you know, he found out that my birthday was the next day. And this is the same day that my DVD, Positively Living, is going on sale. It's dropping on that Tuesday. And Nature's like, now I'm taking you for dinner. He had some favorite restaurant he has up north in North Atlanta. I'm not sure the area. I don't really know that area too well. But he took us, wined us, dined us, and then sent us home in a limousine. You know,
he still lives the gimmick today.
Ric Flair doing, you know, the limousine. And it just, I mean, it was like the amazing end of an amazing career. And that I got to do it on that whole Hall of Fame thing and end that with Nate. It was super awesome.
So obviously your aid in Scott Hall and Jake Roberts is well publicized. Did you get ever any type of reception or reaction from Vince McMahon or Triple H themselves about how that unfolded?
I told Triple H, literally, Jake had been living with me 2 months. When I came in to do, I believe it was the second, I'm not sure second or the third, Best of Nitro. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was the second, but it might have been the third. I think it was the second. And yeah, it was the second Best of Nitro. And Paul and I we've been buddies. Like we broke in the power plant together. I was 35. By the time he got there, I was 36. He was 22. You know, and we were really close friends. And Terry Taylor worked with us all the time. And then he left for New York. And when he left for New York, I called up Kevin Nash. And Nash has been my brother since, you know, back when we were tag team partners. And I called him up, and, you know, he's running with, of course, you know, Scott and Kid and Sean. And none of those guys should be driving. You know, in that quartet. So I told him about Paul, and I said he's a great kid. Might want to take him under your wing. He don't drink. He don't do drugs. He don't do pills. Man, he'd be great to have in your crew, man. And look what happened with him, you know. But you know, Kev did take him under his wing, you know, and so did Scott. So you know, for Triple H, you know, being down there and, you know, being in there, I wanted him to know about Jake. I wanted him to know that Jake was coming in. And I said, listen, bro, I know this sounds crazy. Like, but I tell you, there's something different with Jake. And I think maybe, you know, maybe this, he might. I know I'm not saying he's going to do it. I mean, I backed out of it as I was saying he could possibly do it like 5 times, you know, because I'm not going to nail myself. Oh, yeah, he's going to get his shit together. Like, you know, why would I think that? Now, there's no Scott Hall at the time, just Jake, you know, and then it came down to that WrestleMania and, you know, Hall of Fame. I wanted to bring Jake with me. And you got to remember, Jake was kind of like banished from the WWE for a long time because Jake said a lot of things, you know, he probably shouldn't have said. Not probably, he shouldn't have said, but he did. And he didn't just like burn the bridge. He nuclear blew it up. So when I told Mark Carrano, hey man, I think I'm going to bring Jake with me to the Hall of Fame. He was dally on that for a minute. And they had to really be brought back into the fold. And if it's a problem with drugs or booze or whatever it is, the thing with WWE is they like you to be straight for a year. You know, they want to know like this is real, or at least it's a really good attempt. You know, and it was so weird. I was doing some PR for DDP Yoga somewhere in LA, and Paul was we were in the same building at the same time, and it must have been one of those places that had like 30 radio stations. And he grabbed me, hugged me, sat me down, and he told me, you know, D, not the timing to bring Jake to the Hall of Fame. Not the time, you know. He goes, you know how I feel. And then by that time, Scott's in too, you know. He's staying with me too. And he's like, you know how I feel about both those guys. Like he put Jake and Scott up on a pedestal. You know, like these guys can go. And he would look to them, you know, for, you know, learning everything, you know. And He said, you know how I feel about them, and you know how I feel both those guys should be in the Hall of Fame. So I know at that point he was thinking, he never said it to me, but I know he was thinking, you know, these guys can stay sober, you know, and you can really help them, you know, maybe, you know, down the road. And he didn't say it, but he let me feel it, like, you know, like they're not banished forever, you know, and he's going to do everything he could to help them out. And, you know, then when they did that old school Raw where they brought me in and they let me do a commercial in the back with, you know, for DDP Yoga with Booker T and Ron Simmons, and let me do whatever I wanted to do. Like Paul's like, pull that foot over your head, man. He goes, that's always impressive as hell. He goes, have fun with it. And then they were sneaking Jake in that night, and nobody knew it. And now Jake walks out looking like $1 million, where before he looked like death. I don't know if you've seen some of the before and afters, but they're seriously dramatic. And so all those things that WWE was doing for me and for Jake, you know, so yes, they acknowledged it without coming out and acknowledging it. But I would much rather have it done the way they did it, because it was amazing, man. It was just such an amazing ride.
I know somebody that you helped out a little bit, Vader. I saw Vader was kind of going at you a little bit on Twitter. What's going on with that?
I don't really understand that. I haven't talked to him, but I'm gonna because I don't understand it. Because I love Leon, and you know, I told him. I brought him to my house. You know, him and his son Jesse, who I think is just he's an amazing kid, and he came and, you know, spent a week with me, and then he moved back to Dallas where he's at. And, you know, and it's tough for Leon to do the program that I'm doing. Like, I was working with Jake all the time. You know, when I was helping Jake and even helping Scott, I was working with those guys all the time. And I explained to Leon that, you know, if you want to, I want to help you, bro, but I can't do it with you there or just coming here once in a while. I said, I really need you. If you really want to do this, you know, and he's got a time clock kicking. You know, I know his doctor had said he had 2 years to live, and you know, and that was, you know, over 6 months ago, 7 months ago. I don't know how long ago that was, but you know, I told him I wanted to help him, but I need him in Atlanta, and I can't really help him do the things he wants to do unless he's like not wrestling. Like if he was 40. That would be different, but he's not. I think I'm 61. I think he's a year older than me. So he's around 60 something. I don't know. I don't know the exact year, but Leon, I mean, remember, 400 pounds coming off the top rope with a moonsault. I mean, I don't know anybody. He played all those years of college football at a super high level, played in the NFL for 5 years. I mean, he's a Super Bowl champion, man. I mean, like, this guy is really beat up, and watch Leon in the ring. I mean, he's an animal. I mean, he's unbelievably like aggressive in that ring. That's been his nature his whole life. And like, I can't really help him, heal him with him doing his not power bomb, that Vader bomb thing he would do or anything like that. I said to him, Leon, I need you to just do autograph signings for a year. Like, give me a year to work with you. You know, I mean, that's what I want to do. So I don't know. I got to call to him. I'm sure, you know, I'll call. I sent him an email and, you know, and I said, you know, let's talk about this, you know, and we'll talk. You know, I don't think it'll be a big deal in the meantime. I don't know if he got this. Maybe he misinterpreted me, but I don't know how he could have, because I was pretty, you know, straightforward like I always am. Like, I can help you do this, maybe. You know, like, because nothing's guaranteed. You know, no one ever thought I could help Jake or Scott or anybody. You know, the disabled veteran, they didn't think I could. But it's really important to be eating the real food, because that's what's going to help heal you. It's really important to be around it all the time. And the really fortunate thing I have this amazing crew that work with me, and they would help him. They want to help him, you know, and he wouldn't be by himself, because you know, they want to help them, just like I couldn't have done it with Jake and Scott without them. You know, and it's you know, sometimes it can be a full-time deal. But again, you got to be around me, and we got to be working towards healing you. You know, like what we did with Jake, for a year, he didn't do anything. And then he got back in the ring just so he could lead the way he wanted to. Probably had about 30 matches, and then he was done because guess what? His other hip started seizing up on him. It's like, Jake, you're in your 60s. DDT, not really a great idea. Like, Jake's doing so great right now with his one-man show that he's doing. He's doing this, spoken word thing, as he calls. It's called spoken word, but of course, I told Jake it was called spoken word, so he had to have the unspoken word tour, which I understand because it's Jake. And I don't know if there's a better storyteller than Jake. He's such an amazing presence, has been his whole life, and his whole career. One of the best interviewers ever. So when he's out there doing his thing, man, he's it's just amazing to me how he is completely now not in the ring, making a good living and entertaining people the same exact way.
Also, to stay on a bit of the drama topic, there was an interview you were part of a couple months ago. You got pretty upset. It seemed like the interviewer, I think it was Dan Le Batard, tried to maybe bait you into smearing people.
I'm not even going to put that asshole over. He is such an asshole. I don't, people try to occasionally get under your skin and try to react. And I wasn't even doing that when he was saying what he was saying, because he started, and when he started, I was like, dude, do you know who you're talking to? And I'm positively paid, dude. I'm not going to go there. But what he was doing, he would hit, you know who you're talking to? And then he, hit the mute button. And then he just talk over me. And I never do interviews with shock jocks unless I'm right there. Like, I won't do one with Mad Cow. And Mad Cow and I today are good buddies. But I was good buddies with him too when he started really screwing with me one day. And man, I got really pissed. So I wouldn't do his show for years. And then he finally reached out, come on, bro, I'm, blah, 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 blah. And so, okay, I'll do it. And I reluctantly went. I was in Chicago. I went to his show, and Piper was with me, and Piper, we weren't together, but we ran into each other. So Roddy's going to go out first, and I'm going to come out second. And, they had a great time, Piper and Mancow. And then I came out. We were having a good time. And then he starts busting my balls. Now, it isn't just the radio. There's a camera from CBS, because he had the local station that filmed the show live. And I went, whoa, whoa, whoa. So you've been blowing Piper the last, whoa, 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 whoa. They're like, what, you got a problem with that? You mean you got a problem with me telling you that you're blowing Piper? No, whoa, 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 whoa. I go, Cal, keep talking like that, and I'll do whatever I want over here too. And then Pipe jumped in about the disabled vet that I helped, Arthur Boorman, and just put it over so strong, and the whole mood changed. Now, another time with Mancow, this is after that, a few times, he started in with me again. This time I said, screw this. I walked around his spot. Now I'm standing right next to him. I'm going to say it again, Mancow. Say it again. And I was going to slap the fuck out of him. I didn't care. I was just going to bitch slap him, only because, and I probably wouldn't have, because I love Cal, but he was screwing with me, don't do that shit. You're my friend. I wouldn't even be on this show if you weren't my friend. Any of those shock jocks, I have no time for them. When I went on Howard Stern's show 2 different times, he was the nicest guy. Probably the nicest DJ I've ever talked to. Nice interview. He was, one time I was with Tori, which I didn't say a lot because he was talking to Tori the whole time, and couldn't blame him for that. But the second time I went on with Chuck Zito, and he got a world of respect for Chuck Zito. Like, you better have it, because he will just bitch slap you. He might bitch slap you, just knock you out. But Howard was always a super classy, awesome guy to me.
Had a couple of questions about a couple of old moments. One of, I think, the most iconic moments in WCW history, obviously, when you hit the diamond cutter on Hall and Nash. But something that always interested me is right before that, you had a match with, I think, Mark Starr. Yeah. And the way that the diamond cutter was taken, it looked like you were a little upset after that.
Oh, that's funny. I actually had Austin look at that because they were letting me pick whatever I wanted for the very best of Nitro. I had a lot of influence, and anything I want to put of myself in there, I go, no, I don't want that. Okay, I like that. And that's the moment right before the NWO comes out. And I've had some great matches with Mark, because I would always give him a hell of a match, even though I knew I was going over. I want to make them. But that night, they took us from 12 minutes to 10 minutes to 8 minutes. By the time we're ready to go out there, 4 minutes. And I was so mad because I want to go out and have a match with Mark. And Kev's like, Terry tells me, and man, I cracked. I was like, Kev, what the fuck? And I just went off. 4 minutes. He's like, Dally, what do you always tell me to do? I go, what do I always tell you? Breathe. He's like, just breathe, man. He goes, what are they going to do? Cut us short? This is the angle, and he goes, go out there, man. Just beat them, bro. Tell them we got to go home fast and beat them. See you out there. This is your night. And I went out there and told Mark, got to go. And he knew the spot, so I think he just was improv. I don't know what he was doing. I'm sure he wasn't trying to screw with me. He was like, he just was going. So what happened is I shot him in the turnbuckle, and I called bank shot diamond cutter, which means he hits the buckle, I hit the rope, bounce off and catch him, bang. Well, he hits the turnbuckle, I'm hitting the rope, and I see him like doing a Ric Flair, like doing the face bump forward. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? And I jumped through the air, and I probably caught him about 2.5 feet from the ground, hit it perfectly, and the place popped, but I didn't hear that pop. I was like, that's not the way it's supposed to go. Because I can be a bit of a perfectionist. And I said to Steve, I go, Steve, what do you think about that? He goes, well, kid, a win's a win. I'd keep it. I was like, okay, I'll keep it. And Mark's an awesome dude. And he was a hell of a worker too. He could really go. So I was more bummed out going out there, not bummed, but pissed that they cut the time, because me and him could really get the crowd going, especially since he was more of in the enhancement angle. He could still get the crowd behind him, and I really wanted that impact before it, but it all worked. It all worked. And when Kev hugged me, and Scott, went to shake my hand, and when he went to pull away, boom, man, the place erupted. Kev took that backdrop, and went over the top rope, and man, that was really the start of my career. That was the lighting of the rocket. They set me up so good. I helped both of those guys so much in our careers, and they wanted to do the favor, because we started that angle 10 weeks before. It was supposed to do in 3 weeks, and then they take it off the TV. And they took it off the TV. And by the time it actually happened in New Orleans, it was like it was supposed to happen, but that's not the way it was planned. If it wasn't for Nash and Hall, it never would have happened.
So another thing I've always been fascinated with was your TNA run. You spent about 6 months there. How did that come about? Like, did you reach out to them? Did they reach out to you? And what were the plans?
Well, coming in, Jeff was in control at that time, and he wanted that. He knew that me and him had some good matches, and I was a name brand, and that coming in, it would help them get the TV that they wanted, because back then they had no TV. It wasn't like they had Spike or any of that back then. They were looking to say, look, we have these main event stars, we should get a bigger TV thing. So it was really to help them. The money was good. I only had to work, a couple, I think it was was it, let's see, we do 2 shows. I only had to work twice a month. Sometimes I'd work 5 days in a month, but it went down to like 2 days. So it was really easy on my body. And coming in, for me, it was like, if we're going to do this, Jeff, let's do some angles that lead up to it. So by the time we get together, I've been made here in the company. And when you beat me, it means more. And he was like, absolutely. And I loved working with Raven again, because Raven, like, to me, Raven was a top guy. I never didn't see Scotty as a top guy. Just like I saw Benoit and Eddie. I knew those guys were top guys. I knew at one point Jericho, who ends up being bigger than everybody. I knew those guys would be top guys. Chris wasn't there yet, but he was on his way. And look at what happened with his career, man. I mean, I don't know. You really think about it, Chris is one of the most decorated guys ever in what we did.
You also worked with Monty Brown quite a bit there. He was looked at by a lot of people as a guy that TNA kind of dropped the ball on, because they kind of just let him go, and he seemed like he was putting it all together. What did you think of Monty Brown at that time?
I thought Monty Brown was a star years before he got there. I brought Bishop. It was at the end, though, but because if it would have been in the middle of my run, when I helped over 30 guys get jobs, Monty would have been part of the crew. If he had got to me earlier, I loved his look back when he had the dreads and stuff. I mean, talk about an athlete. I mean, he was as good an athlete as you could get. He just needed experience in the ring. And I thought that, he should have been, like, when people say to me, who do you think should have made it who didn't really get to that spot? Monty would be one of those guys. And it really comes down to how the company uses you too, so, whoever dropped the ball there, he was he was a guy who could have been a main event dude. And God, his energy and his natural charisma, again, could have been if I just got with him like in 96 or 97, I think it would have been a whole different world for Monty.
So what led to your exit from TNA?
I wasn't there for any real time. And at that time, they weren't doing anything better with the money. And again, I was 49, and I wanted to come back and say, hey, look what the guy can do at 49 years old. It's not the same guy I was at 45 or 44 or 43, just like you see Chris Jericho, he just took a sabbatical to run with Fozzy, but Chris blew his back out at 40 years old. And he talks about it all the time because it's true. He was back in the ring in 3 months. So, just wanting to show, I think Chris Jericho can probably wrestle if he keeps doing what he's doing, where he takes that time off, but he's not like sitting at home. He's running all over the stage, jumping off drum risers. I mean, he's everywhere.
Even when he's not on TV, I mean, he's wrestling this weekend.
Right, and he's still doing the shows in between, and he gets a great payoff, and he's not playing with his band that night, which, by the way, did you see the video, Judas? Have you seen it? You know who filmed that, produced it, directed it? My crew.
Wow.
That is a DDP production center video. My guys directed it, shot it, and edited all in 8 hours.
I think that's his best song and video.
Amazing. I mean, I think the song is killer, without question. I love it. I put it on my playlist when I'm actually working out with people and stuff, because I think it's an awesome song. But the video is amazing. And that was Chris's idea. But Nathan Mowry, one of my guys he's actually also directing another new movie, a new documentary that we're coming out with. And the documentary is a entrepreneurial, inspirational movie. And it's about how DDP yoga happened and all the trials and tribulations and the second guessing and all the things along the road. And it really just shows you that, like, it's got a lot of heartstrings in it because it was really passionately put together and everything. But that's something, I don't know where it's going to come out, but we're really close on it. And the same guy who directed Jericho's video is the same guy who's been directing this documentary. And it's mainly putting all the footage, because we have so much footage, from so much stuff we've done. Like from the resurrection of Jake the Snake, we had over 500 hours of, film shot to make it 93 minutes. Steve Yu, who's the president of my company, and he's the main director who oversees everything, every video that goes out, with our label on it. He's the guy who oversees it. I'm the salt and pepper guy. I'm the guy who comes in and goes, okay, I love that. Take that, make that longer. I want to see his face. I want to see him say that. I don't want to hear it on a voiceover. I want to catch him talking to me, then go back to the B-roll. Like, that's the shit that I do. And it's just something with me and Steve that really connects. Me and Nathan, it connects. Because today, my DDP Yoga Performance Center is also the DDP production studio. And we're going to just start working with the next mayor of my town. We've just done videos that are about people's businesses that could be commercials. We're doing something like this cryo club, which is all this thing where you get in this 200 and some degrees below zero. We're doing a thing for their business. Like, we're getting in, we make movies, we make inspirational videos. Like Mark Merrow, on his video that we did and that Steve directed about his mother, has done over 75 million views. Our disabled veteran, Arthur Borman, is up over probably 100 million at this point between all of the different areas that video is out there. So we probably got about 20 videos that we've done that are million views, like they go viral. And we're pretty good at it because we're pretty good storytellers.
Is that something that you are always looking to expand upon? Because I've noticed that it started with the YRG DVDs and everything has evolved to the point to where your ventures in this are branching off into different things.
Well, I'm always looking to grow, mentally and, professionally, because there's always someplace else to take it. So many people get done with whatever that goal is. And we'll use weight as an example. They hit the goal, they feel great, they're doing great. I don't have any more goals, and then they fall off. And then it's all a disaster. It's like, I've got 3 goals all going at the same time right now, but they all pretty much intersect. And it's all based around the DDP brand. And to me, this DDP Yoga Now app that we've created, we haven't even started to promote it. And we have tens of thousands of subscribers already. I have never really promoted it. Is it out there? Yes, but not like it's about to be. Because first of all, you have to understand what it is. So many of these apps that are fitness apps, they go, okay, first we're going to do squatting. And they show the person squatting. And they do the squatting, do 15 of those. Then you got to go bloop. Okay, here's the next exercise you do. And you do this, and you do that, or whatever the hell you do. Nothing has the workouts. And we have over 150 workouts that are on the DDP Yoga Now app. They start sitting in a chair. I'm about to film for the seniors, start laying in bed. So no one can tell me I can't work out. Are you laying in bed? Can you lift your arm up? Can you lift your leg up? You can do the workout. Then it takes you to, there's 5 workouts sitting in a chair. You never leave the chair. But I've already had those up there that I shot with disabled veteran Arthur Borman, because that's really where he started, just starting to get the movement. Then there's 5 more workouts where you use the chair to balance, help yourself get up, get down. And the goal is that you can go to the beginner, intermediates, and so on workouts using that same chair, or maybe you don't need it at all. And then it goes to a different level. And the confidence and everything goes with it. That's one section. Then I've got all these amazing cooking shows that are all healthy food, real food that tastes great. I don't care how healthy something is. If it don't taste great, I'm not eating it. You know, I might have done it with my wife, my daughters, some of my favorite chefs. Maybe somebody who lost 60 pounds, still got 60 to go, like my buddy Jody. And I bring her on, and she tells how she eats organically, cheaply. And she tells her secrets and says, here's a new recipe that I have. And I do it with her, you know, or whoever I do them with. Then there's Motivational Monday. Every Monday, you're going to get a video. Boom. Motivational Monday. Here's the dates. Here's the deal. Here's what I think you should focus on. And we do that. And then, of course, there's all the tracking, your pictures, measurements, weight, pain ratio, blood pressure, blood sugar, A1C. I mean, there's no app like it, period. And again, it's really more of everything that's involved that it takes you to get there, to do what you're doing, you know, and we're starting to make videos around that and show you how easy it takes it from just taking your phone and go bloop and you're on the TV. I mean, it's that simple, but it scares people. So they use DVDs, which don't have a problem with that either, but I want to help people move along. Like forever, people use CDs. Now, very few people have CDs. It's all right here. And that
car doesn't even have a CD player anymore.
Right. They don't even make it. This Apple computer, which is 3 years old, doesn't have a place to put a DVD or a CD. You have to put an extension for it because it's going to be obsolete. Within the next couple of years, it'll be obsolete.
Dallas, man, thank you so much. Absolutely. If there's anything you ever need to promote, you know, to get a hold of me, man.
All right, buddy. You know, just we're constantly, anybody wants to follow me. Like I said, I'm going to be in the UK. Did we talk about that, right? We talked about the UK?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to be out there. If you want to know where I'm at, where I'm going to, just go to DiamondDallasPage.com or DDPYoga.com and sign up on the mailing list. You know, people have heard me say it a million times. I'm going to say it again. Don't listen to what I have to say about my program. Go on Twitter.
Hey, me. I was never going to be able to take a bump, probably never going to be able to grapple again. I did DDP yoga. I couldn't feel 2 of my fingers in my right hand. And now I can take bookings. I can do grappling tournaments. I can get in the ring. I can train. It changed my life. I'm a big, big, big advocate of DDP yoga. It really changed my life.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate it. You know, anybody out there want to know more about it, go to ddpyoga.com. And again, at Real DDP, at DDP Yoga on Twitter. Oh, wait a minute. I forgot to tell you. Instagram. Everyone's saying, get your own Instagram. I'm like, I don't need it. I got at DDP Yoga. Like, no, you didn't know. So now I had to get my name back, but now it's at Diamond Dallas Page. And every week I am doing a live Q&A, and I'm only answering wrestling questions at DallasPage.com. So you can ask me questions right there. My social media girl, Rachel, she asks as you ask. She asks me as you ask. So
how does one go about getting their Instagram name back? Do you got to pay somebody off? Do you have to contact Instagram?
Well, because, you know, I have, what do you call it? The little authentic check or whatever that is.
Verified, yeah.
Verified, right. Well, they said, I work for Diamond Dallas Page. That's his name. He owns that name. So, you know, you just have to be persistent. Find the people that do it on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. And I did it, and I got it back. So, works for me.
Dallas, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
All right, buddy. It's been your pleasure. See ya.
Hey, guys, back here with Story Time with JJ Dillon, joined by, of course, the Hall of Famer, JJ Dillon. Today, JJ, we're going to talk about shots fired in the Monday Night War. And this was unique, JJ, because you were on both sides of that Monday Night War. So the first thing I want to ask you, one of the early shots that was taken was the billionaire Ted skits. Do you remember these being brought up backstage at WWE?
Not really. Like Kevin Nash and Razor Ramon, they were Scott Hall. I mean, they used their legal names so as not to infringe upon any rights, but they kind of went into business for themselves. I mean, they did one that was a parody on the Horsemen that, maybe some people thought it was entertaining, and we didn't think it was entertaining because we, and I speak collectively, and I think I talk about everybody that was in the Horsemen, we're very serious about our business, and it wasn't something that we found any humor in somebody making fun of.
So early on, Vince McMahon had some of these billionaire Ted segments done to basically make fun of a lot of the people that were leaving for WWF to WCW. What do you think motivated him to do that? Was it the fact that WCW was going head-to-head with them on Monday nights when they could have had virtually any other night of the week with Turner owning the company?
I think the issue with Vince McMahon and Ted Turner went further back and was much deeper. Ted always had a thing where people that he was doing business with, he liked to have an interest in that business. I mean, he was willing to buy an interest or what have you. And when Vince McMahon started with programming on the TBS network, Ted said something to Vince about buying into the company. And Vince slammed the door on that, and it created tension between the two of them, so that when WCW, or I guess at that point it was still Jim Crockett Promotions, were maybe vulnerable, or there was some question about their stability, the programming, which was World Championship Wrestling, was still doing great ratings at that point. And Ted stepped in and actually bought Jim Crockett Promotions to protect the program. And he called Vince McMahon and said, "Hey, now I'm a wrestling promoter. I'm into wrestling." And Vince McMahon said, "Big deal. I'm still going to kick your ass." So there was tension going back that far. So I'm not surprised that Vince McMahon probably had fun with the parodies at what he thought was Ted's expense.
During your time there, did Vince ever really speak of Ted Turner? And if so, like in what light did he speak of him?
I don't remember. And my position was during the week, I worked in the office, suit and tie. Vince was hands-on, which was one of the things that surprised me the most when I first got there, because I was used to working the territory system where everything was on a much smaller scale, and I used to wear 10 hats, doing travel, doing talent issues, what have you, but involved with booking, creative, and now all of a sudden at what was then Titan Sports before they went public, Vince had professionals who were specialists in each of those areas, and they weren't necessarily wrestling fans. They were just very, very good at what they did, and Vince used to say he didn't require that the people that worked in these various departments or department heads to necessarily be wrestling fans. The only thing he demanded of them is that they watch the program and at least be familiar with it.
There were a lot of obviously iconic moments that happened during that Monday Night War, the first of which, Lex Luger hopping over from WWF to WCW. How far ahead did WWF know about Luger leaving, or did you all?
A lot of things happened that were like very, very sudden. At one point, Lunger Blaze left and had the title and dropped it in the trash can. I mean, there were shots fired back and forth, and if contracts expired and somebody was a free agent and Vince had knowledge, or the people, whoever was in charge at that point, Bischoff or whatever, had, and there may have been behind the scenes dialogue, which I never wanted to get involved in because I never wanted to have any legal liability of tampering with somebody that was under contract at the time. But if you told me that it took place, in all honesty, would be surprised.
So Hall and Nash do leave. And at this point, WWF is losing names pretty quickly, and they're gaining a few too. You get Vader, you get Mark Mero, you get a couple guys in, but you've lost the likes of Lex Luger, you've lost Hall, you've lost Nash. What was Vince McMahon's demeanor like at this point? Because Bret Hart took a sabbatical at this point too. Did he seem concerned, or did he just like not sell it at all?
If he was concerned, he didn't visually show it, even to his inner circle. Vince always was, and I think to this day, and I've not been around him for a number of years for a consistent period of time to kind of get a read on it, but he was never one that gave the appearance of being vulnerable or concerned about anything.
Also, maybe about a year and a half after Hall and Nash leave, the Montreal Screwjob happens. And that maybe not necessarily a shot fired at WCW, but in the ring after the match, Bret Hart is motioning the WCW letters, and it's everybody knows he's heading over. You had switched sides at that point. What was the reaction among people at WCW about what went down?
I guess when you're in the business for half a century in some capacity or another, from when you're a fan up through an active career managing and then being on the executive side of it, nothing ever surprised me. And in that particular thing, I knew that Bret was very proud of his Canadian heritage, the fact that he was held in high esteem by fans in Canada. But Bret was also a businessman because Stu owned a territory. Bret knew the business side of it and the so-called do the right thing. And if he was the champion, I don't think it was ever an issue with Bret about legitimately dropping the title before he left. It's just that he wanted to have some voice in when he did it. And I don't even know that it was so much concern about who he was dropping it to, more when. And he didn't want to do it in Montreal in a huge show in front of Canadian fans. I think he chose to have a voice in maybe picking another site. And I don't know if Vince had distrust and thought, I know his background, I know his father was a promoter, and I know the philosophy, if you're dedicated to business, do the right thing. And he's saying all the right things, but I think Vince wanted to cover his bases. So in that situation, without Sean's knowledge, or without Bret's knowledge, and as Sean later admitted that obviously he was in on it and the referee was in on it too. And they just, they did what was considered, we call in the business a false finish, where Sean would go for a move, and and Bret would be feeling the pain, but he wasn't going to submit, and eventually he would make it to the rope to cause the hold to be broken. But the minute he was in the hole, the referee got down, jumped up, called for the bell, and at that point, I think Bret knew that he'd been had, and Sean immediately left the ring. The referee left the ring, and I guess Bret refused to leave the ring.
How did people within WCW feel about that?
Wow. I think everybody was kind of shocked, and they had they were doing a documentary, if memory serves me right. And so there were people, there was a video crew there that was shooting it. And so Vince went down the ringside because Sean was not going to leave. And Vince went down there, and when Bret saw him, I mean, it was a hucker right in Vince's face. And I thought, I know that Vince loves the business, and I don't know where he would draw the line. When I see his son come off the top of a cage through an announcer's table and do some things that are incredibly high risk, God, I don't know if I'd ever want my son doing something like that. So Vince Vince, and I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, would do sometimes things that you would think anybody with his stature, with his, you know, financial security and his well-being, that like that. And then when they got out of the ring and got backstage, and again there was a camera there, I mean, Brett punched him in the face, gave Vince a black eye. And there were people who are skeptical who say, oh, you know, I mean, maybe this whole thing was staged. And
yeah,
there were people that thought that. But I thought, just watching it, you know, just a gut instinct opinion, that the way the finish happened was either somebody that was genius in setting that up, because if you're in the business, you could say, hey, man, it looked like the guy got screwed. The fact that Shawn Michaels bailed out and was gone, the referee raised the hand and was gone too, and left Brett out there. And then what took place after with Vince coming out and everything, you can look at it both ways and say it was genius the way it was laid out, or Brett got screwed and he was one angry young man.
Were you backstage when DX did the invasion of WCW?
I'm trying to think. They came in, and I was still in a position. It was before my relationship with Eric kind of soured, and I was on good terms with both Hall and Nash. I never had any problem with him when I was in talent relations with what was in the WWF. Got along with both of them. They were both very good businessmen. And when they got to WCW, the difference was that they were dealing with Vince McMahon and somebody that was a third generation, that the company was 24/7 a wrestling company. And Vince had that whole history, and his approach with talent and everything was like day and night compared to WCW, where Eric Bischoff came in. Eric is a great salesman, and he sold himself to people who had no knowledge and just took him at face value. And a lot of the people really had failed along the way. People had been very successful in the Turner organization that got the job, failed, and it was damaging to their career and their legacy. So I think there was probably some relief when somebody like Eric came in. And Jim Herd initially, when Jim Herd was the first one, Jim Herd was the station manager in St. Louis when Sam Muchnick's program was taped at the Chase, and when Sam Muchnick was president of the National Wrestling Alliance, a really a very, very respected figure. So the people at TBS said, oh, wow, here's Jim Herd, who's one of us. He was a television station manager, and he's a wrestling guy too, because he was tight with Sam Muchnick. So they came in, and in truth, Jim Herd was better off staying in the pizza business. And the wrestling.
Were you still,
if he'd have stayed in the pizza business?
Were you still under WCW contract when WWF bought them out?
My contract had expired, and during the due diligence process, people from TBS interviewed everybody of all departments, myself included, and the theme that we kept hearing was, this is a win-win situation because we have, first of all, deep pockets and solid financial resources, so that concern can be put to rest. In terms of production equipment, they had state-of-the-art everything. And the third thing that they talked a lot about was their ability, because of all their other programming, to be able to go to markets that maybe WCW wasn't in at that time, say, like it opened Europe wide open, because they could then take other programming that was very popular to Europe and package wrestling in with it. And that all of these pluses were mentioned in the due diligence process, but the one thing they kept saying, however, you people are the experts in the wrestling business, and that's something that we're not going to touch. And of course, the ink wasn't even dry. I think November 1 of '88 is when the deal became finalized. And all of a sudden, there were closet fans that had positions in the Turner organization that all of a sudden, were a voice in how they thought things should be done. And there was one guy named Jeff Carr who, and I don't know what his title was, but I remember him saying to me, I know I got the answer for ratings going through the ceiling. I said, really? What is that? He said, I would put Flair and Sting on television. Can you imagine the ratings? I said, yes. But I said, what would you then put on the week after? And I'd like to know ahead of time what you were going to put on the week after that. Because our thinking has to be long term, and they call that hotshot booking, where yes, it's very tempting to take something that you know is a guaranteed winner, but then you have to think, are you going to pay the price for it after? And those people, they all of a sudden did what they said they weren't going to do.
In 2001, when Vince McMahon bought out WCW,
did you imagine
then, or had your contract already expired with WCW that you had signed in '97?
I'd had a contract, but Bischoff had run the company almost into the ground, in the sense that the big difference in terms of managing talent, Vince, after TV, did not go to where the talent stayed, and because a lot of the talent had their rooms paid for, many of them were in the same hotel, and guys stayed where they wanted to. But Vince did not go to where the majority of guys stayed and then hang out with them in the bar. Vince, like even in the Garden, might take a small group of people from his inner circle and go to a particular steakhouse that he really liked, but that was unusual, and there weren't other talent that were part of that group. On the other side, Eric Bischoff would go to the hotel where we put up most of the guys, where we were paying for the rooms, go to the bar, get hammered, and then the guys would sit back and watch him and wait until they realized that, he was 3 sheets to the wind, and then they would go up to him and all of a sudden want to discuss business. And I can't count the number of times where I would get a phone call the next morning, and it would be so-and-so. And he'd say, I want to talk to Eric because we had a conversation last night. Well, hold on, let me see if he's available. And I would call Eric, and I'd say, Eric, I got so-and-so on the phone, said you had a conversation with him last night in the bar. And Eric would say, yeah, I kind of vaguely remember. Why don't you tell him I'm not available, get with him and tell him that I was tied up in some high-level meeting, and I wanted you to find out from them what the gist of our conversation was. And invariably it was, well, my tag team partner, somebody gets first class, and they get their hotel paid for, and they get their rental car paid for, or it might be a salary issue. And they would tell me, well, Eric said I was going to get first class airfare, my hotel would be paid for, my rental car would be paid for. And I'd say, all right, hold on just a second, I got another call, I'll be right back with you. I call Eric and say, Eric, he says that last night he talked to you about first class hotel, rental car, and you said yes. So now he's calling with, that's what he feels that you committed to it last night. Well, maybe I did, and I guess if I did, I did. So go ahead and tell him that you'll put the wheels in motion. And that story repeated itself more times than I want to remember. And the cumulative effect was that it put the company in debt, and a lot of time they became part of a contract, so that when the momentum swung the other way, and the company at one point was looking, and this was right after AOL Time Warner, it was that merger aspect, where somebody looked at the numbers and they were projected to lose $80 million. And then the mandate come down, cut everywhere you can. The problem was the cuts were all at the lower echelon, and all of the higher level guys had guaranteed deals. And when they did all the cutting, the number came back to 60 million with a projected 60 million for the following year. And that's when AOL Time Warner said, for those kind of numbers, it's just a division. We don't need to be in the wrestling business. And they pulled the plug.
What are your long-lasting memories of the competition between WWF and WCW and the environment that it caused backstage in each of those companies?
I don't remember so much about the WWF aspect of it, but I remember more of what happened with the WCW. I had some issues that were personal with Vince, which was the foundation of why I was my decision to resign. I resigned on the spot on a Friday and was gone. Did not have another job, had not talked to WCW. I actually didn't have a job. I had sold my house, took a loss on the house, and my children the twins were not quite 4 or just turned 4, and one of whom had special needs, and then another daughter that was 2. And so I had a huge responsibility. Had a note to the WWF that was not secured. And so I was able to sell the house. Had trouble selling the house, took me a year and a half, took a loss, $50,000 loss on the house. And at settlement, I had about $20,000 to my name. So there were people who thought I was crazy, that I'm in the job that a lot of guys in the business would be, in their estimation, a dream job or where they would love to be. But sometimes things aren't what they appear to be. And I had a private conversation with Vince because I met him face to face in his house, which nobody knew that I was there, when he offered me a job. And then when I made the decision, which I made the decision a year and a half before that, I just had to sell that house and get out from under it so that I'd be free to go. And I did not have a contract. I was an employee with benefits and what have you. And I walked on a Friday. Unfortunately, Shane was being married the next day, and a lot of their family and guests were in from out of town. So it was, I could see it from the McMahon family perspective, but I also had my perspective of my obligations to take care of my family. And I even told Vince, I said, if it's just me, I could survive living in a phone booth if I had to. But the minute that the well-being of my family is put at risk, that changes all the rules. And I just reached a point where I couldn't work for him even one more day to get through the wedding on the weekend, and was gone. Didn't have a job. I had the house, so all the furniture was moved, 2 cars, and you either put it in storage or give the moving company an address. So my wife flew to Atlanta the week before, and it was like, okay, I'm sure I'm going to have an overture to WCW at some point. They may or may not be interested. I don't know. Never met Bischoff. I was friends with Jerry Jarrett over in Nashville and thought that I could engage in conversation with him, but I didn't want anybody to know what I was doing for fear that it would get out. And then I figured if WCW has no interest, if Jarrett doesn't have anything, I'm well on my way towards Orlando with all the entertainment things that they had going down there, and I'd been in an entertainment business, so I would kind of be at one part of a triangle where if it didn't happen there, I would go off. And I remember calling Tony Schiavone, and he said, I'll talk to Bischoff. Bischoff said, set a meeting up. And then when I met with Bischoff, there was a hiring freeze because that merger had just taken place with Time Warner, and he couldn't have hired me. And I went in there not knowing what to expect. And I guess I expected that if we did engage in some kind of thing and there was interest in me, and in hindsight, I didn't realize that here's a vice president with the WWF at that point before they went public, who now is out on the free market, that it would have been very difficult for Bischoff to explain to the suits at TBS, even if they knew nothing about the wrestling business, how somebody that in that high profile position with Vince and was available, that you wouldn't want to hire him. So he told me, he said, what I could do is I'll put you like a consultant for a month or two, whatever it was, until that hiring freeze ended, and then be hired. So that's how it played out. But when that meeting took place, I kind of thought that Eric would, again, I wasn't about to divulge any proprietary information that I could have been sued for, but he could have asked.
He did allege that you did,
which I didn't, and
yeah,
I expected to be asked by Eric Bischoff more generic questions about, how do you plot your strategy, things about how the system worked, not specifics in terms of numbers that would have been proprietary. And I got none of that from Eric. All I got was him talking more than asking. And it was like, I don't know how longer Vince can hang on. He's got to be on the ropes. What else can he come up with? I'm gonna put him under. And it was like he was obsessed with the fact that was what he was going to do. And I just sat there. I wasn't about to tell him because I needed a job to take care of my family. Yeah. I wasn't about to tell him, hey, he's third-generation wrestler. He eats and sleeps the business. And I don't know a whole lot about your background, but if I was looking in Vegas and had to choose where I was going to put my money, I'd have to put my money on Vince. But I certainly wasn't going to tell Bischoff that because, hey, I had my family to think of.
Is it true that Kevin Nash recommended you for that spot as well?
I never asked him. It wouldn't surprise me because I had a great relationship with Kevin and with Scott. And the only thing is, once we got there, I remember it at one of the early TVs or whatever, and sat at a table with just Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, and myself, and they looked at me in the face and they said, please do not tell him what kind of money we made up there. I said, no, of course not. And they wanted to be able to play their cards without Bischoff having too much knowledge in terms of whatever they told him, questioning it.
When was the next time you spoke to Vince McMahon after you left to go to WCW?
I spoke to Vince the night I walked out. He was blindsided. And
after that, I mean, like after you had come on to WCW, how long was it after that? Was it years? Was it?
Yeah, it was years. The next time I was contacted, WCW had gone out of business, and I'd never had conversation with Vince during that time. They went out of business. I did have a contract with WCW, which they honored, and they honored everybody else's contracts. And I think I was less than a year, and I was making very good money. And then went through a divorce because the big money was coming to a grinding halt. Jerry Jarrett at that point had a construction company that had two major projects in Atlanta. They were building a high school, a small high school, private high school, and they were re-imaging. It's right when all the Amico stations were going over to BP. And he had a contract, and he went from having like 3 people working for him because he owned property and did things over in Nashville, and now he's in Atlanta with these 2 major projects and had a payroll of about 50-some people. Didn't want to move over there, so he had me, because we had a great relationship. He said, I trust you. And so I worked out of my home, and I used to go out to the sites and just make sure everything was all right. And then the paychecks would be FedEx to me every Friday, and then I would go out to the job sites and see that everybody got paid. And that was fine for 2 years until high school was finished. The re-imaging contract, there was another in-between contractor, and Jarrett was actually a subcontractor, and there was some dispute, and so the thing was on hiatus for a while, and Jerry had no major business in Atlanta. All of a sudden, he went from 3 to 53, back to 3, and moved them. And after 2 years, I'm now out of work and looking at a divorce and having to figure out at that point I would have been 61. And when you're spent the greater part of your life in a niche business, and at the end of it, after my active career, been in the executive part of it at the highest level with both companies, and then you go out in the real world and look for something. They know who you are, and they're excited to meet you. But in terms of, and I was willing, more than willing, to adjust my lifestyle, and I wasn't looking for pie in the sky. I just wanted to be able to provide for my family and have benefits. And so it was a little bit of a trying time. I had to leave Atlanta, where my family was, because of the divorce. And my mother which is why I'm in Delaware. She was originally from Delaware. My father passed away in 2001. And so she was living by herself in a small house, 2 bedrooms. It was paid for. And my father was 85 when he passed. And my mother I was here probably 3 or 4 years, and she had a stroke and passed at the age of 92. But she bowled until she was 90 and very active. And my doctor tells me that I'm blessed with great genes. It's something that they're either you inherit them, somebody can't give them to you, you can't buy them. And so I've been very fortunate I've had knee replacement, my left knee 10 years ago, and my right one within the last year. And other than that, every wrestler that doesn't say he has a bad neck if he's been in the business any length of time. I sit and watch TV, and I find myself watching TV like this because I realized that somebody said, well, the reason you're doing that is because it's taking pressure off your neck. Because my hand used to tingle and sometimes go to sleep. Yeah. And I have lower back. But nothing that I would ever want to go and haven't looked at and considered surgery. So I'm very, very fortunate that next month I'm going to be 75, and I'm thankful that I have the good health that I have.
During your time at WWF, they had some interesting characters, some cartoonish characters per se that maybe we hadn't seen before. I know you were working
at the WWF or WCW.
WWF. I mean, WCW had its fair share as well, but
maybe Gobbledygooker.
The Gobbledygooker for sure was one. Do you remember that idea being thrown about?
As I said, Vince was hands-on in every aspect of the business in the office during the week, but none of the creative was addressed during the week. That was all done on the weekend, casual dress at Vince's home. And in the winter months, we'd be in his formal living room. Summer months, we'd be outside on a cabana overhang with a bank of phones, and the pool would be there. And didn't see Shane so much. He'd be out running around with his pals. He was a little bit older than Stephanie, but I basically watched Stephanie grow up from, I guess she was maybe 9 years old, 10 years old, and watched her grow up. They'd be out there playing and splashing in the pool while we would be working. So all the creative was done on the weekends. Vince took credit for everything that was good, never took any of the heat for anything that was bad. And I remember the Gobbledygooker, there was this egg, and Gene Okerlund was out there, and when the egg popped open, I don't know what the fans anticipated at that point, whether it was going to be a sting or something that was going to be monumental and impactful. And this turkey or whatever it was jumped out, and I have such great respect for Gene Okerlund, and he was there having to conduct an interview with this Gobbledygooker, and I don't know if you know that character made it through the hour, but I had some input on some others. I remember Papa Shango. And I thought, wow, Papa Shango, he was this like voodoo type of guy. And I even suggested that all of a sudden, this is before The Undertaker, that all of a sudden the lights go out, and after the opponent's been announced, and when the lights suddenly come up, there's the opponent flat out in the other corner with his feet on fire. And I thought, oh, this has got to be different. And I guess the fans weren't as excited about it as I was. So, there were things that, and I had been to Africa on a safari. And so when Vince had the idea of reviving Tony Atlas's this with a shield and a spear. I gave him the name Saba Simba because we wanted something that sounded African, and I'd been there. And Saba is number 7, and Simba's lion. So it was like 7 lions is what the literal interpretation of Saba Simba was. But the fans looked at Saba Simba and they still saw Tony Atlas, and it wasn't something that they just embraced.
You want to talk about excited about Papa Shango, and our viewers won't be able to see me, but you will, JJ.
Oh!
I keep a Papa Shango action figure on my desk, one of the few decorations I have in my office.
Oh, you hold that great value. And I saw him recently out in Vegas. He lives in Vegas. And I mean, he was the godfather after that. So he's had a couple of incarnations. And
yeah, he's not only that, but as the godfather, he became the good father, which was like the censored version. He had Kama. He had like even a different version of Kama. He's made it work multiple times, that guy.
Yes.
A question I had about the gobbledygooker: why put Hector Guerrero in that outfit? Why not just a normal guy? Was there a plan for him to wrestle?
I'm sure that in Vince's mind, he envisioned that yes, and so Hector was somebody that was there who was a polished performer. So if you eventually get to the point where this character has to get in the ring and wrestle, certainly you would want to know that somebody's in there who you don't have to train somebody that's never wrestled before, or switch somebody in there that maybe's taller, shorter, and doesn't walk the same or look the same. I'm sure that was part of the thought process.
Also, in 1996, right before you left, there was like an influx of guys. There was Barry Windham, Tracy Smothers, Bill Irwin, these guys who had made it work at whether it was on the territory or at high levels like Barry Windham, that were brought in, but they were given names like the Goon and the Stalker and Freddie Joe Floyd
and the Widowmaker.
Do you happen to know? Do you happen to know the reasoning behind that? Even Terry Gordy was the executioner. Do you know the reasoning behind that? Did Vince just want to make things fresh? Did he not think that people would know who these people were?
It would all had to do with the rights to the persona and the name. And there were exceptions like Ric Flair and I want to say Bret Hart, or like Steve Austin. I mean, he still was Steve Austin, but the marketing and the thing that was copyrighted and the likeness was the Stone Cold character. And that's why everything was Stone Cold, and the T-shirts with the verse on it. And so every character that came in, Vince had a way that he didn't embrace something that he did not originate and create. In other words, he wouldn't bring the Road Warriors in and immediately push them to the top. Instead, he created his own version of Road Warriors, which was Demolition. So he had the rights to those names, the likeness, and everything in terms of marketing, licensing, and merchandising.
Why do you think there was a period where every wrestler had to have an alternate job? Like Man Mountain Rock was a rock star. Duke the Dumpster Droese was a trash man. Henry Godwin was a hog farmer.
Was
a tax man. Yeah. Why do you think that? Because, I mean, today Vince wouldn't like that because Vince wants his guys to be larger than life. He wants them to be above having day jobs. But back then it was standard procedure.
Yes. And in some cases, like with The Undertaker, when Percy came in and become his manager, he was a licensed mortician.
Yeah.
So the Paul Bearer was kind of an extension of something that he was comfortable with.
Even The Undertaker was a guy having a job because they had vignettes of him working as an Undertaker. And so, I mean, he even felt,
yeah, I remember.
Needless to say, he made it work a little bit better than Duke the Dumpster Droese did. But
and Skinner was another one. Yeah, they all and like the Big Boss Man, Ray Traylor,
and the Mountie.
rest his soul, was a great athlete, but he was a correctional officer, and Vince would often talk to him and say, "Tell me about yourself. What did you do? What other jobs did you have before?" And then a lot of times that would trigger Vince then to see them, and maybe he never sat down and spoke about it, about why he did it. But I think if somebody, like if Big Boss Man had been a correctional officer or in law enforcement, it was easy for him to then adopt that character and all the nuances and everything that went with it, because he actually had been a part of his life. So I think maybe in Vince's mind, he thought that would help them live the character better, because in reality that had been part of their past.
Obviously, one I want to talk about is The Undertaker. He came in at Survivor Series 1990. He did a dark match before that as well, but he had a run before that. Had you met The Undertaker before he came into WWF?
Not that I can recollect, no. And I did not, people would, I did not look at the other, when I was working with WCW, I never watched the WWF product. When I went to work for Vince, I no longer watched the WCW. And I never felt that I could do my job to the best of my ability if I was reacting to what somebody else was doing. I rather looked at what my job was and what my challenge was, focus all my attention on doing that to the best of my ability. So I did not see Mark Calloway before he came in the first time. And when he came in, like me, that meeting was in private at Vince's house.
How'd that meeting go?
It went very good. I mean, he's an impressive guy. He's big, had the size, and just, some in the business they call it the it factor. And if you round the business on the executive side, it's hard to describe, to find the words to describe, and eventually, it's just, I don't know, I can't explain it, but he's got it, and it's like it's I guess another word for natural charisma, and he had that. And I think whatever Vince's first reaction was, he thought maybe you could be a Viking, with the helmet with the horns and
the berserker. Basically,
well, I don't know that there was that connection, but he just saw this big guy, and why what Vince saw in him. Vince had a very creative mind, and he had a department that he would then take someone and turn them over to this department and say, okay, look at them, look at their build, their body, their features, what they do, and play with it, feed me some ideas. And he would then a lot of times take something that they would suggest that they saw in them, because they're looking at it from a different perspective. They were not necessarily wrestling people. They were looking more at like taking somebody and casting them as a character. And I will say this, to me, as I look back for my years, and I was there before they went public, so I was there when it was the WWF for just short of 8 years. And then I was with WCW for 5 years, and before they went out of business. But in all of the years that went by, my opinion was, and I feel that I've got some credibility when I say it, I think that The Undertaker is the greatest persona, character, however you want to define it, that was ever with the WWF/WWE. No, hands down.
Yeah, and I think that he and the character, they go hand in hand. You got to have that for him to get over to the degree that he did.
What's so amazing?
WCW had him, World Class had him, and New Japan had him, and didn't find that special thing. Did that surprise you that even though the Undertaker character wasn't around then, did it surprise you that they missed out on him?
Vince, again, was a wrestling business 24/7 and third generation. They knew how to recognize talent, and then how to make stars out of talent. And the people at WCW, I mean, you mentioned The Undertaker, and you think about the people that came out of there. Stone Cold Steve Austin came out of there. Chris Jericho came out of there. Mick Foley came out of there. I mean, there's a lot of people who just
Hall and Nash came out of there and then went back.
Yes, were there, and that was another part too, that Vince pioneered licensing and marketing. And the guys that were there did extremely well. Every quarter they would get a printout that would be like a small phone book. And on the back would be a check all broke down on what the product was, if it was something that they got a big share because it was maybe a DVD on their career where, you know, they got most of it, or, you know, however the percentages broke down. And I mean, it would even be products that went out that were then some that were returned as a credit back against it. I mean, it was all laid out there based on their contractual agreements. And in the back was those guys had some. I remember them saying that the Iron Sheik that one year when action figures were a big deal, he made more money from his licensing and merchandising than he made from his in-ring appearances. And when the guys got to, like when Hall and Nash got to WCW, they were accustomed to that quarterly check for licensing and merchandising. So they made a sweet deal with Eric Bischoff for their wrestling talent. And then after some time went by, they went back to Bischoff and they said, you know, we got a substantial amount of money above our wrestling contract for licensing and merchandising. You're trying to get it launched, but nothing's happening. So you really need to make it up to us in some other way. And the only thing that we can see is make an adjustment to our wrestling contract because we're not getting that other money. And what argument could he have? Well, no, I don't agree with that because they tried and just never got it launched off the ground. So Hall and Nash went back in and again, played the fiddle and kept redoing their contracts, getting more and more money.
When a guy like The Undertaker walks in and he's not found his big break in wrestling until this point, and he had been wrestling for 6 years, does Vince McMahon look at him after that first meeting and say, this is a guy that we'll be able to lean on for a while? Or is it just a, well, we'll see how it goes type of thing?
I think it is a work in progress that you may envision a level of success with a guy, but sometimes, I mean, I can relate to the Horseman. That was a spontaneous thing that was not something that was the brainchild of creative. It was a spontaneous thing that the fans picked up on. And we never in our wildest dreams imagined that it would become as big as it became or last as long as it did. Same thing with the individual characters at the WWF/WWE. And The Undertaker, what to me is, and I have so much respect for him professionally and as a person because he is a great guy. But when you think about what he did as that character, he didn't do much, but what he did well. And he wasn't the first one to walk the top rope as big as he was. Don Jardine, the spoiler, walked the top rope long before The Undertaker did. And the spot where they would do something devastating to him and he would lay in there, and all of a sudden when he would sit up, that roof would blow off the building. Something as simple as that. And then he morphed over time. You know, he became, more tattoos. He became a biker for a while. It was still The Undertaker, but it was something that was added to that, more tools in his toolbox, where he was still doing the same things, but it wasn't just a rehash of the same old thing forever.
Undertaker got a short-lived championship run about a year in. Did that shock you? Because that wasn't the type of thing you saw a lot. I mean, people remember the Ultimate Warrior and stuff, but he was a few years in, and that was even kind of quick. But The Undertaker had a short-lived, couple of day run in 1991. Did it shock you that Vince was so quick to go with him in that spot even?
Not really, because when I first went there, they were running 3 tours every night. And they were doing, I think, 4 major pay-per-views, and then it expanded from there. So wrestling is an athletic soap opera that's 52 weeks out of the year that is never ending. You know, everything that we see with any television show, regardless of whatever your favorite is, Game of Thrones or whatever, it has a season, and then it has a break, and then it comes back. It tries to recapture their audience, but wrestling never ends. And so that's a challenge from the creative side to perpetuate that. And what you try to avoid is the big highs and the big valleys. You're better off if you can kind of keep a steady thing. And it's still going to be cyclical at times, where you get a little bump because somebody really catches fire, or all of a sudden just things run their course faster than you thought they would, and you don't have something else hot and ready. I think to me, that's why I'm still a fan. It's still the greatest business in the world. But it's like Andre the Giant. Andre the Giant was a great drawing card. You didn't want him going after chasing the world title, because you want the world title on somebody else, so that you have 2 things to put on the marquee: a title match, and wow, the 8th wonder of the world, Andre the Giant. And I think Undertaker would be another example that, yes, he did have a short run as a title thing, but that was, and I don't know where Vince's head was at that time, why he did that, but that was never going to be the focus of what his goal was, and to be world champion. He was to be the Undertaker.
As we wrap up on the Undertaker for now, and I want to approach this later on at length, but it seemed like they had almost a monsters gallery for Undertaker. Anybody they could find bigger than him, that's the guy he's going against. Did they have to do that to get sympathy for the guy? Because, I mean, he's a dead man alive who doesn't feel pain, and he's 7 feet tall. You're kind of limited in how you can make people feel sorry for the guy. So they dragged a bunch of giants out there.
That's always been, I don't want to call it a problem, but a reality of the business. I mean, I can go back to Bruno Sammartino, who had that incredible run where he was going to the Garden and doing incredible business, sellout records that'll never be matched. And most times back in that era, they would have a guy who was the monster of that particular run, and usually it would be 3 matches culminating where they thought, is this the guy that's going to finally take Bruno down? And then finally at the end, Bruno would prevail. But meantime, they would be building the next monster underneath, who would either be beating up on Tony Parisi or Dominic DeNucci, as that was a stepping stone. And, oh my God, and they're Bruno's paisans, and now what's going to happen? And really that's what happened with Goldberg. Goldberg, his football career ended because of his knee injury. That's what brought him to WCW and a contract at the power plant. The problem was that he never, ever had a chance to really learn how to perform. And it's like a baseball player that in spring training can go in the batting cage, but until the season starts and they're out there in front of live pitching in a competitive environment, that's when the cream rises to the top. And Bill Goldberg never had that chance because there was no place for him to go learn. WCW had no live event schedule that did any kind of business. They never scratched the surface pay-per-view wise. And if you remember back, that's when Stone Cold was so hot. And if you took a picture of Stone Cold and put Bill Goldberg's picture right next to it, if you look at him, it was like looking in a mirror. Both of them had the shaved head, had the goatee, had a similar body with the big bulging traps. And so I think, and Bill had that it factor. But then when Bill got out there, Kevin Sullivan who's one of the brilliant minds in the history of our business that never gets credit for how really brilliant he is. They just look at him as the guy with that was an incarnation of the devil playing on the sand with the bones and everything with eyes rolled back in his head. And he was a Catholic altar boy from Boston, but he was a brilliant mind in our business. And when Goldberg finally, by necessity, was put on television, I remember the first week was, well, what are we going to do? If he's out there very long at all, he's going to expose himself as to really how little he knows. Well, let's have a big fancy entrance, with the sparklers and everything, and he'd come out and exhale and look like he was blowing smoke or blowing fire, and then he would get to the ring, kind of like the same thing with the Ultimate Warrior with the streamers and running to the ring and shaking the ropes, and then when the bell rang, he didn't do a whole lot.
All sizzle, no steak.
Yes. Okay. Very good. You're very observant. And but with Goldberg, it was like, well, let's just have him beer somebody and jackknife him in 1, 2, 3. And wow, the people just exploded. And then, as I talked before about in this business, yes, you can do something, but you have to think about the second week, third week. And I remember the second week all, the problem didn't go away. We still got what are we going to do? Well, it worked last week. That makes it different than everybody. Let's do it again. And then all of a sudden it took on a life of its own where the fans started talking about the record of consecutive quick victories. And then that became the story. That Goldberg goes in there and wipes people out, and this is consecutive win number, whatever it was, and they were tracking it. And as I said, Kevin Nash was a brilliant guy. And he got he got with Bischoff, and he said, even Superman, with all his powers, and he could fly and he could do everything, there was one thing that he was vulnerable to, and what was that? It was kryptonite. Bill Goldberg has got to have a kryptonite. The people are going to reach some point where they're going to say, hey, well, there's nobody can beat him, and they're going to lose interest. And Kevin sold the idea that we've got to show a human side to him. He has to be vulnerable. Somebody has to beat him. And, and it's kind of like just stood there like as big as he was and as awesome as Kev was that, I guess maybe I put my card out on the table because, I'm big enough that people were going to not be shocked if it happened. And then that's going to make Bill vulnerable, and now the people can relate to him more because there is a human side to him.
How do you think that Bill thought about Kevin Nash ending that streak?
I never talked to Bill, and I think Bill knew that from day one, he didn't have the background to be able to say, hey, I feel strongly about this or that, or that's the right thing or not the right thing, because he had been put in that position every step of the way. And to all of a sudden say, wow, I'm this huge star and I think this is a mistake. To Bill's credit, he never did that. And he said, I guess maybe these people know better than I do, and I'll go with the flow.
Another big name in the WWE is CM Punk, and I don't know if you saw yesterday, he called you racist. What were your thoughts on that, him going after you?
This is also coming from a guy that stole all his wrestling moves from Kenta, so, he's a fake motherfucker, so you can't believe anything that comes out of his mouth. So, I didn't hear those remarks. I don't pay attention to someone who's irrelevant to MMA. I mean, the guy's a complete joke. Don't use my name to try and get some notoriety and clout in the MMA world because you're a joke, man. You're 0-2 in the UFC against 2 bums they had to bring in. So CM Punk should stick to his little bullshit and leave the prime time to me.
Just had Ronda Rousey go in the Hall of Fame, and of course she's now made her way to WWE. Is pro wrestling something you'd ever consider doing after your career's over?
Yeah, definitely. Well, even before my career is over, I would love to make an appearance in the WWE. I love the organization, and I think it is really awesome. So, and it just takes such a different form of athleticism. And I feel like it'd have a great crossover because of, my Dancing with the Stars experience, and then also my MMA experience and my athletic backgrounds. But, I'm focused right now on just healing my arm. I can't really do anything until that's done.
Is there someone you like watching now as far as pro wrestling that you really like, that you really get excited to watch?
I wouldn't say necessarily that there's a specific person I like watching. I'm really definitely into the WWE divas, so I like the women. So whenever the women are on, I focus on them.
Yeah, and they had that Total Divas show. Is that something you and Austin would ever do, like a reality type show where they follow you around, or would you get sick of the cameras?
No, I definitely don't think we'd get sick of it, but we'll see if the opportunity arises. We'll cross that bridge if it comes.
Okay, and has there been any talks about you potentially going over to the WWE, or is this just you're hoping that'll happen down the line?
I have a lot of things in the works, especially, I'm still building up my career while I can, since I've had to take time off of fighting and doing a whole lot of stuff. In the combat world, I'm just trying to promote and do as much stuff and the other things that I do in this world too.
Absolutely. Did you watch pro wrestling at all growing up?
No, I didn't watch UFC growing up either. We didn't really have TV, so we watched a lot of just like VHSs. So I didn't really get exposed to this world until I started training.
Oh, interesting. Do you pay attention at all now? Like, are you following what Ronda's doing at all?
Yeah, I pay attention as much as I can. I mean, of course, we don't have a lot of time to sit around and watch TV. I watch the fights and record them whenever I can, and then we have our few shows on Netflix. But other than that, just being a fan, and I would love to go to the live shows. That's where I'm more of a live show sports person.
Yeah, you got to see if Dana White can hook that up. Brock Lesnar's coming back and to the UFC, so I'm sure there's some relation there. You could probably get Dana to put in a good word for you, get some free tickets. Yeah. Is pro wrestling ever something you'd want to go into? Seeing all the Ronda Rousey's going over there now, and you've done some cross promotion, obviously doing the reality show. Is that something that interests you at all?
I think it would be fun. I think if I ever did get into pro wrestling, I'd be able to utilize some of my more artistic martial arts that I, started in the beginning with. Well, why not? If the door is open, why not?
Right, excellent. Did you ever watch pro wrestling when you were growing up?
Not really. No? Not really.
Okay, is it something you're sort of taking notice of now?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I know before you signed with the UFC, there was a lot of interest from the WWE about potentially signing you. Was there ever any talks, or was that just smoke?
No, there was. Yeah. There was, and I had talked to one of the agents from there. They're going to fly me out to Orlando to do a trial and whatnot, because he had liked me. He's like, hey, this kid's charisma, he's athletic. I said, because I told him, dude, I can do anything that Rey Mysterio could do. Yeah. Just give me the proper coaching. You'll be seeing me doing triple backflips, and I'm a pretty fearless human being. And it was between kind of doing that or fighting. But fighting was always on my mind. But it was a thing that I was like, maybe, man, depending on the pay. Yeah. But I just decided at the end, man, I'd rather fight, man. I'm more of a fighter than an actor.
Were you a pro wrestling fan growing up?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Who are some of your favorites? I mean, you mentioned Rey Mysterio. Was he someone that you were watching?
Yeah, Rey Mysterio, Bret the Hitman Hart.
Nice. Brownie points for me because I'm from Canada, right? Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, the whole Owen family. The British Bulldog, which wasn't British, right? It was Canadian.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
The Ultimate Warrior.
Do you still watch wrestling at all? Do you still keep up with it?
No, I don't, man. Now I don't know. It seems like I don't know if it's because I've gotten older, but it's not the same. It's just not the same, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Attitude Era was my thing. Personally, I loved watching it back then. So, do you think we'll ever see you in the wrestling ring in the future? Not in the near future. You got a title shot to worry about, but
I don't know, man. I don't think so. Maybe someday if they ask me to do an appearance, maybe. But no, man. That lifestyle is hard, man. They travel with grip. I want to have kids, man. I want to be around my family in the near future. So I doubt it now.
Best of luck in the fight on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you.
And I know he's a bit bigger, but do you train at all with CM Punk at all? I know he's in the gym here and there.
Yeah, mostly I don't train with CM Punk. He's a lot bigger than me. I stay with the little guys, and I don't need to hurt myself working with bigger guys. So but he is training. He's been there. He's been putting in that work. I don't know if he has something in the works yet, but he's been training.
What's his presence like in the room? Because I know he's a personable guy. He's very dedicated to the team. It seems like a lot of guys are happy with him being there.
Yeah, he's a great guy, man. I mean, coming from such a different sport, making some great money to come in the UFC and getting punched in the face and getting submitted, and definitely a humbling experience for him. But I think he's embracing it, and it's cool to have him around, man. He's got a good presence, good attitude.
Yeah, and were you ever a pro wrestling fan growing up?
No, honestly, I wasn't.
So did you know about him? Like when he came over, did you know who he was or no?
Honestly, I didn't know who he was. I just, I heard he was a wrestler. Looked him up a little bit after I heard about him. Oh, okay, that's who he is. But yeah, I didn't know who much about him.
I mean, I guess some people when they see him, maybe they're a bit starstruck. But I guess for you, it's just like a regular guy. So it's just like, oh, I guess he used to fight in the WWE. So it's not like a big deal, right?
Yeah, it's not like a big deal to me. I just see him as a normal person. Everybody, everyone's a normal person. We all just got different jobs. So I don't feel we're any different from anybody else.
James Lynch here for Fightful.com with Henry Cejudo, who's got a huge fight coming up here against Sergio Pettis. Henry, how's it going? And how happy were you when you found out you'd be fighting Sergio Pettis?
Extremely happy. It was a long time waiting. We're supposed to fight in May, and he asked for this fight too in the beginning. I was a little surprised just from the matchup of the styles, but I as soon as I fought Wilson Hayes, I said, let's rewind it, man. Let's take it back and let's do it. So he wanted December 2nd. I gave him December 2nd.
Awesome. And let's talk about your last fight. A dominating victory over Wilson Hayes. You got the finish. What was the reception like after that fight, just with the fact you got the finish and you really sort of reminded people that you're at the top of the division?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm not just a wrestler. I think that's what I show people. Since the beginning, really, man. I'm an athlete. I can do certain things that I can pick up on certain things faster than a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I'm able to kind of pick up on things like that. So it's just timing, man. I'm getting better, and I'm letting people know that I got power in my hands.
Yeah, excellent. And obviously, you had that fight with Joseph Benavidez where a lot of people felt like you won. Do you feel like at some point you guys are going to cross paths at some point?
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But like I said, man, we're going to have to renegotiate before anything when I fight Joe. So he knows that. I know that. The UFC knows that. And I told him right after my fight, I said, we're going to renegotiate if I ever fight that dude, when I fight that dude again, because I did feel like watching it, because in a fight at times you don't know, because he hit me, I hit him, but then I watched the fight again. I'm just like, how the heck? How do you win?
Yeah.
Like how? But especially the judging, man. Some judge had him winning 4 rounds to none. I'm like, what the?
Yeah.
I'm like, wow. But I'll take it like a champ, and we learn from it.
Yeah.
I think I built a lot of fight fans because of that fight. And man, I got phone calls from everybody, from Dana White. Everybody's like, "Hey, man, we apologize. Judging is sometimes a little wacky, but it's cool, man. I'm getting better, and that's the cool thing about it."
And speaking of getting better, who have been some of your main training partners for this camp? Because you do a lot of cross training. I talk to a lot of guys who train with you, and it seems like you get a lot, a variety of different looks.
Yeah, for sure. I go down to Brazil. I train with Patricio Pitbull.
That's right.
Out in Brazil, and back home I train with Bruno Bulldoguinho. Frankie Saenz, who's fighting next week in the UFC Fresno. Ramon Salazar. Just a pack of lightweights, man, at the gym that I'm at. Leandro Eagle, former LFA world champ. He's
for a Bellator title, yeah.
Yeah, he's at my house. I mean, I get the best of the best, man. So I'm extremely fortunate.
And we just had Thanksgiving. I got to ask, how's the weight cut going? I know it's tough fighting right around Thanksgiving and everything like that.
Yeah, it sucks, man. It's horrible. But I have Fran's Kitchen, my meal prep company, that they take care of me. I had turkey. It was unsalted, but it'll do.
Yes, it still holds up to some degree. That's good. Do you feel like a win, especially a finish here, will propel you into that title shot? I know they're talking about TJ Dillashaw, but really, how can they deny you, especially if you get a second straight finish?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to wait for the UFC and then, take one fight at a time, man. Right now, Sergio Pettis is going to be on my mind come Saturday night. Yeah. And we'll take it from there, man.
I know before you signed with the UFC, there was a lot of interest from the WWE about potentially signing you. Was there ever any talks, or was that just smoke?
No, there was. Yeah. There was, and I had talked to one of the agents from there. They're going to fly me out to Orlando to do a trial and whatnot, because he had liked me. He's like, hey, this kid's charisma, he's athletic. I said, because I told him, dude, I can do anything that Rey Mysterio could do.
Yeah.
Just give me the proper coaching, you'll be seeing me doing triple backflips, and I'm a pretty fearless human being. And it was between kind of doing that or fighting, but fighting was always on my mind. But it was a thing that I was like, maybe, man, depending on the pay.
Yeah.
But I just decided at the end, man, let's I'd rather fight, man. I'm more of a fighter than an actor.
Were you a pro wrestling fan growing up?
Yeah, I was.
Okay. Who are some of your favorites? I mean, you mentioned Rey Mysterio. Was he someone that you were watching?
Yeah, Rey Mysterio, Bret the Hitman Hart.
Nice. Brownie points for me because I'm from Canada, right? Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, the whole Owen family. The British Bulldog, which wasn't British, right? It was Canadian.
Yes, exactly, yeah.
The Ultimate Warrior.
Do you still watch wrestling at all? Do you still keep up with it?
No, I don't, man. Now I don't know. It seems like I don't know if it's because I've gotten older, but it's not the same it's just not the same, man.
Yeah, no, I agree. Attitude Era was my thing, personally. I loved watching it back then. So do you think we'll ever see you in the wrestling ring in the future? Not in the near future. You got a title shot to worry about, but
I don't know, man. I don't think so. Maybe someday if they ask me to do an appearance, maybe. But nah, man. I think that lifestyle is hard, man. They travel with grip. I want to have kids, man. I want to be around my family in the near future. So I doubt it now.
Best of luck in the fight on Saturday.
Yeah, thank you.
That's a love to her. That's all I'll say is she's doing what she do, and I never knock nobody's hustle. So best of luck to her. I'm not a huge wrestling guy, so I don't really have much to say about it really. Coming from an Olympic background, you would want to see a little bit more of that competitive fire. Just to say if you are gonna go out on your shield, you can go out a little bit. You can go out a little bit better than that. But hey, I ain't gonna tell nobody how to live their life. She living her life. She happy doing what she do. And I wish all the power to her. It might have been a couple. She was. Misha Tate hates her obviously. Misha's one of my very good friends, but I don't have no hate for the woman. So best of luck to her.
A lot of people probably give Ronda shit, or some people I don't know. She's probably gotten some shit from somebody, but they're dumb. She's taking an opportunity, and good for her.
If I was Ronda Rousey, I don't give up, and I try to back to the gym and train more and try to improve and back to UFC. But I think maybe she little give up, and I think it's right decision. If she don't feel like she wanna fight more and fight again in UFC, so why not make good money also in the wrestling?
It's cool to support her in her new venture in her career. She's a pioneer of the sport, and I feel like I was a small part of her new chapter. Just like I feel like I was a small part of it, being there and being somebody that got to throw on a Rowdy Ronda Rousey shirt and cheer for her from the crowd. The only thing I needed was a couple beers, but I was in camp, so I couldn't get as rowdy as I wanted to. No pun intended.
I saw her, make her appearance the other day, and that was pretty cool. I was like, oh, that's awesome for her. So, maybe I will pay a little bit more attention to it as she, she gets in there and gains the WWE fan base. And, I'm interested to see how that plays out for her.
I think it's good for her. I'd rather see her do something that's like active versus just sitting on the sideline and not doing anything. Because at the end of the day, she's still an athlete. And athletes, how they are. You can't sit them and be like, yeah, take this desk job, because they ain't gonna do that. It's just not mentally healthy for them. So I'm glad she's doing something.
Man, I am so into it right now. My kids, man, they saw it one day on TV and they started watching it. So now they're WWE fans, and then they saw Ronda, and then that was it. So now they're the biggest fans. We got to follow it. Man, it's good for her. She's got to make money somehow, and doesn't have to get punched in the face. It's tough too, man. Those guys, you got to practice a lot for that. And my kids see it. They're fans of it. I got to watch it, and I support her, man. She's got to do what she's got to do.
Well, we know she's good at entertaining and entertainment industry. We know she wasn't the best fighter, but hey, she was entertaining. Fighting wasn't for her. Maybe it could be, it couldn't be, but clearly it's not for her. So hey, she ran with the entertainment industry, and clearly she's good at that, and that's how she made her name. So I'm all on board with her doing what she's got to do. That's a smart move for her.
People are so quick to forget how great Ronda was, how much of a pioneer she is in the game. You think about from Dana going, there will never be women in the UFC, to then having her do what she did. And, women's MMA is the level is rising up so fast now. It's rising up so fast to the point where it's like, eventually, the men is rising up as well, but they're rising up faster than the men's MMA did from 1993. And yeah, the game kind of, I think, not left her behind, but just evolved faster because of her, coaching staff. But going to the WWE, I think it's great. I think, power to her. Enjoy yourself. Fucking get that money. And fuck everybody else. Do you.